Hey everyone, Matt Landfair here with Primary and Secondary. Welcome to ModCast. Today's date, I need to look it up. That's how bad it is. February 12th, 2025, episode number 419. We're going to be talking to Steve with High Desert Cartridge. Now, why are we going to talk to Steve? I don't know.
No idea.
Here's why. Because he developed some cool stuff, and he's been working with some buddies, and he's making some good stuff. So why don't we have some discussions? Because I don't think that there are enough discussions about ammo. People can talk about what they think. They can talk about the things that they've learned on Facebook or on YouTube. But how many people are going to the source or a source? That's why it's nice to have Dr. Roberts to come on and talk about terminal ballistics. This is what's actually happening versus, you know, what I think should happen. And yeah. So we're going to talk about Steve, or talk about Steve. Yeah, we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk to Steve. We're going to talk about what's Sammy spec, because that's kind of an interesting topic to me. And for those of you that haven't watched before or fairly new, pretty much all the primary and secondary modcasts are about what I want to talk about. So screw you guys, screw the listeners. I don't care. I want to learn stuff. Not really. But yeah, we're going to talk about some Sammy spec stuff. We're going to talk about that as a guideline. We're going to talk about load development. Our friend Daryl Bulkey has some needs. They're special needs. And especially when it comes to ammunition. The guy has been shooting forever, and he likes his Magnum loads. But you can't constantly do that all the time.
Right, yep.
And so my background's in law enforcement. So is Steve's. The podcast thing, I think we're going on 9 years now. I think it might be 9 years next month. Or no, it might be this month. Primary and secondary is 10 years old. Love doing this stuff. Love having these discussions. Next week, I have another episode, or as a matter of fact, this Saturday, talking to Matt Larson about that mitigating moral injury. The week after that, next Wednesday, I'll be talking to Hickok 45 and Assorted Friends. We're going to talk about firearms and enjoying firearms, because I will be the first to admit I was one of those people that said everything had to have a purpose. All my guns have to have a purpose, and they all have to be duty and all this other stuff. And as I got a little older and realized, yeah, no, that's not the case. It's okay to have fun guns. It's okay to enjoy this. And it is absolutely possible to enjoy duty guns. It's impossible to enjoy shooting those, but you're missing out if that's all you focus on. So we're going to focus on the wide range of what fun we can have with firearms. In the background, there is a 3D printer going, so I will try to mute myself as often as possible so you don't pick that up. I blame those guys from the 3D podcast that pressured me. They twisted my arm and caused me to have to purchase one of these machines, which has been pretty much going nonstop for 2 weeks now. I love it. It's great. Kids love it. Yeah. So we might have a couple more guys jump on. If they don't, I have no problems with doing a one-on-one. As a matter of fact, if we just do a one-on-one, we might wind up going down some fun rabbit holes, and it's a good time. So Steve, and my favorite thing, I love saying this, make sure you as the viewer or the listener, make sure that you are supporting those sources that you have found to be beneficial. If you like what Steve has to say, pay attention to where he's from. It says in the title today. If you're interested in his products, you're probably going to want to look them up. You might even place an order. But also make sure you follow on social media. Give subscriptions. When stuff is shared that benefits you, that might change your opinion of something or give you a better insight, or if there's something that you really like that you want to have yourself, let's say that Steve has a new 32 caliber load, don't hesitate to share, because these algorithms do not work in our favor. I suspect already YouTube has restricted aspects of this video because of my background. Not that we're handling firearms, not that we're shooting or anything like that, but just that the fact that they're present. So you as the viewer, the listener, get to help us out by circumventing that algorithm and sharing stuff. And it's appreciated. So Steve, I think we first actually met at one of the training summits.
Your summit down there in what, Logan was it? Yeah,
Logan.
2020 was the first year, and then I came down the next year, 2021. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so we have friends in common. I remember Bill Blowers talking about, as a matter of fact, I think it was Bill Blowers first was talking about you. And then having your name come up with other friends and maybe I need to pay a little closer attention to what's going on here. And so tell me a bit about your background, how you got to where you're at now. I do know, that you have a solid foundation in law enforcement. And how did you go from that into ammunition?
Did 27 years law enforcement, actually retired this month, 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. It's like taking a backpack off of a long trip,
Yeah.
Was always, Dad wasn't into guns. My uncle was a Marine right before Vietnam, so 50s, early 60s. He's the one that taught me how to shoot. Fascinated with that kind of stuff. Got my first gun was a revolver back in when I turned 21. It's been a long time ago, 84? Yeah, something like that. Dan Wesson, 15.2, still have it. 357, changeable barrels, whatever. Got into loading, hand loading then, and then law enforcement. Started with the Forest Service. Went to the Park Service Academy. Forest Service was a great job. Got to ride a horse for a living for a couple of years on the backcountry. Park Service Academy, did some stuff with the local Park Service, and then got on regular law enforcement. During that time, I got to teach at the Academy Firearms for 3 years. Was on a small team that rewrote the Academy curriculum for firearms training, and then the post-Academy training for firearms. Did forensics for 5 years, and that's when it really swapped over. We've got a state law enforcement firearms instructors association that started back here in '91, and it was a really strong group, still is, but we had all the main patriarchs, I think, of the combat shooting at the time. Cooper came out, Ray Chapman, of course, Clint Smith and Bill Rogers, and all who's who of the back then. We have a seminar every year for a week. First 2 days there's usually armor classes, and then there's 3 days of or 2.5 days on the range, and Wednesday nights usually the business meeting then we have a guest speaker. And 1 year was Doc Roberts, and that usually they have, and I never heard of Doc before. They usually have like an hour or so set aside for a guest speaker to whatever. Doc was on there for like 3 hours. It was standing room only. It was nonstop. It was
and no complaints of the 3 hours, I imagine.
Oh my gosh, no one left. I think everybody had bladders and was probably peeing in their bottles. I don't know. No one wanted to leave. It was that riveting and that good. The downside of it was, it's kind of funny, kind of bad, because we have a lot of sponsors during that week. So the guys from back then, ATK owned Federal, Spear. I don't know who owns it now, but those guys were there. Winchester and Remington were there. So when we got to the question and answer period about duty ammo, whatever, Doc had no idea who's in the audience. He's going, no, that's a crap around, blah blah blah, And so a friend of mine nudges me. He says, next time Doc mentions one of the ammo companies that's happens to be the reps in the room here, watch the rep. Kind of cringe, it's like, but yeah. So I got into that, was in forensics for 5 years, got into actually ballistics, through our instructor seminar. We had some ballistic seminar. ATK presented some stuff, Hornady presented some stuff, Spear and, Federal. And then Hornady had some ballistic seminars I went to, fascinating stuff. And then the first thing I got into, this is kind of dark subject. I'll let you kind of where you want to go with this, Matt. But so I was doing.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. No, I mean, it's, I guess you got to know your audience. All right. So I did the investigations for our county. Go ahead.
When people find out more about backgrounds and where you've come from, I think it's appreciated, and especially for me.
Yeah.
If I find out more about this guy, and I like where this guy's coming from, this is a company I want to support because of this is what he's been through, and this is what his frame of reference is, and his perspectives I absolutely can appreciate. So yeah, have at it. I love hearing this stuff.
So I was doing investigations for our county, law enforcement place, and I was there for 20 some odd years, and death investigations, that kind of stuff. Was doing crime scene reconstruction, whatever. And so we had a suspicious death, and our prosecutor wanted an autopsy. So I always had to attend those. So I get down there. We're a very rural county. We're big, about a little over 3,000 square miles, but we don't have a medical examiner on board. We have a neighboring couple counties over that do our medical examiner, the ME stuff. So I go down there, of course, wait in line, and they had a shooting victim from the night before mine there, which I got there. Officers are there, and it's like going, hey, can I watch this? I'm not, I just want to, I'll stand off the side. I just, I got a gunshot victim here. I got a bullet in somebody. It's like, I've been to a lot of jail testing, I've been in law enforcement for, at that point, I can't remember, close to 20 years, but never attended an autopsy. It was the first one for the gunshot victim. And I'm going, so I want to watch this, So they get down, long story short, they get down, the bullet, doc pulls the bullet out. And I must have said it, I thought I had said it in my head, but I said, that's a gold dot. And he turns around with, the bullet still in his forceps. He goes, your bullets I'm going to pull out of people? I'm going, well, I don't know every bullet you're going to pull out of a person, but I know what that is. I said, that's a gold dot. And I turn around to the officers. I said, have you verified what this bullet is? He goes, yeah, that's a gold dot. I was going, okay. And I said, turn your forceps over. Let me see the base of the bullet. I said, that's 40 caliber. Because I could tell by the base, the diameter of the base of the bullet. He goes, yep. And I looked at the officers. He goes, yep, you're right. I'm going, okay. So what'd this thing do? So now I'm looking at the doc, and after, this all thing's over, I said, I know you don't have to do this, but if you ever have a shooting victim, and I said, I don't want to get in the way, but I like to come down and watch this thing. I'm really interested to see, jail testing is one thing, and I can't stand it when you get these people that are shooting newspapers and watermelons. It drives me nuts. And jail testing is good, but this is where it's at for me. It's like, this is the end all. And between that and the neighboring state, I got in on almost close to 40 different shooting victims in about like a 5-year period. Didn't get it to them all. Sometimes I got there late. Sometimes they wouldn't let me in or whatever. But I would go down there anyway just to talk to the officer. I'm not here to. I don't care about the incident. I don't care about the names involved, who's involved, if it's an officer involved. I don't want to care. That's not what I'm after. The main things I was after is I want to know what the launch pad was. Whether it was the pistol or the gun, whatever. Distance. Any barriers. To me, barriers could be clothing. Clothing is a barrier. Anything that's not, right from the barrel to the skin. So if there's anything in between, a lot of times I'd get there and the shooting victim, still had their clothes on, so I could tell what the, barriers were, but glass, cart, whatever it is. And then I'm looking at penetration, and then what it actually hit. Talking to the doc as he's going through it, what this thing hit going in, and what its resting place is. And so those were my criteria, and I'd take notes on this stuff best I could, or the best that they would allow me to. And I'm looking at going, I'm not totally seeing. Of course, we're looking at. See, I grew up in the '80s. We didn't have internet, right? So we had magazines, combat handguns and different magazines. These experts were given their whatevers, and you got the Marshall Sanau, stopping power thing and whatever. But that's a different technology. Technology's changed. And I think people are still stuck in, I hate to say it, but it's stuck back in 40 years ago almost. And
agencies are as well.
Yeah, agencies are as well. And so I'm seeing way different. So I have to screw my head around this. So this is after, so I just started doing this, enter Doc Roberts. comes to our deal in our seminar, and so our meeting starts at 7. Doc gets on there at about a little before 8, and we're out of there like about midnight. I mean, this is just riveting. The first time anybody in that room's ever heard of this guy, or he's a dentist, right? From what, the Navy? Wasn't he from the Navy? He's from the Navy, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And it's like, but this guy is like, all this stuff from Fackler's going on, and I've studied Fackler. A lot of the guys in the room had studied Fackler, so it's like he's all this stuff he's been exposed to and had access to, and so now we're getting out of this meeting, this presentation of his. I mean, he had a PowerPoint presentation with pictures and everything and all this information, and I'm just scribbling as fast as I can and listening to him and everything, and I pages and pages.
As you're watching this and taking notes, how much of what that you already saw in yourself matched up with what he was telling you?
That was the thing, is that the only thing I had to go to up to that point was what I read coming from the 80s and 90s in the magazines before the internet. That's all we had.
Oh, so this is pre going to all the autopsies.
Well, no, I'm trying to. My basis of my thought processes was from the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah.
So then I started getting to the autopsies, and I think I had been to 5 or 6, and then entered Doc Roberts. And so, see, I'm comparing what I'm seeing versus what I've been reading all these years. My mind's just going, I'm in turmoil here.
Yeah, completely.
Doc comes in like a road grader and just smooths the road out, takes everything out of the blockages out of there that I've had going. I'm trying to, and technology's okay, technology, I'm taking all this stuff. I should know this, but it's like, I'm not that smart. Okay, I'm just, whatever. I'm just a fuzzy peasant, whatever. So we, at about midnight, I'm able to sit down with him. He probably doesn't remember, but I sat down with him for about another half an hour. I said, this is my notes I've had on my shootings and blah, blah, what are you seeing? And he goes, and he looked at my stuff. He goes, you're on the right track. He goes, because you're taking the bare data and not clouding it up with a bunch of garbage. You got the launch pad, the mullet, any barriers, the penetration depth, the bullet performance, what it actually is, and great stuff. And then I was talking to him about, there was the neighboring state also let me on some of their deals, and that doc let me on something that at that point I had not read before, which is the body. So you can shoot 10 different people with the same bullet and get 10 different performance based on everybody's different skin elasticity, bone density, even the organs, the elasticity, and the different physiological makeups. If you're a smoker, non-smoker, you're on medication, and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes genealogy and whatever, cultural stuff, sometimes plays into the part of bullet performance. And at that point, I had not read anything about that. It's like, geez, I got all this stuff going on here, and I hadn't take that into account. And I was talking to Doc about that. He goes, that's something that's not really discussed much, how much it's different. And so after, these upper 30, almost 40 different autopsies I've been to, came to the same conclusion what Doc told me. It's like you can shoot 10 people at 10 bullet and get same distance, same launch pad, everything, and get 10 slightly different performance out of the bullets. It's there's too many things within the body, person to person, that also can change bullet performance. And so there's not a magic bullet, and it just irks me to no end when, but I think, that last, you brought Doc back on here, what was a couple months ago?
It was.
I probably watched that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I need this refresher. This is great. I'm glad you did, because he's kind of like obscured. It's like, bring him back out of the woodwork here somewhere.
And I want to bring him back again. I think we still need to talk about rifles. And when I brought that up to him, he said, it's the same thing. I said, I know for the most part, but there are aspects that a rifle's doing. Rifle projectiles at those velocities and the construction, we've seen some slightly different differences or some slightly different performance. So let's address that.
I think it's necessary to bring the masses up to speed, up to the 21st century instead of 40 years ago technology. I think Daryl's the one that really hit it on the head hard. Is accuracy and penetration have been replaced by capacity and expansion. And everybody, when you talk about bullets into humans, everybody's talking about expansion. But when you talk about hunting, it's all about penetration.
Yes.
And I said, well, name one threat that's ever been stopped by expansion alone. And I said, I think we can probably go back to the 86 Miami on that one. They had the expansion, didn't have the penetration.
Yeah.
So I think definitely you want the penetration first. If you get expansion, then celebrate it. But if it doesn't expand, if you're putting the bullet where it needs to go, what more are you wanting?
Well, and that's been an interesting discussion. And the more I get into this, the more I'm leaning towards just a disruption of the organs by itself, just by the projectile, even if it's the shape of it is not disturbed. It sounds like that's going to be potentially causing incapacitation, depending on the organ that's disrupted. That expansion
It's interesting. So I had one autopsy I went to, a shooting victim. It went through, there's a barrier, was a t-shirt, that's it. And it went through between the ribs, so no other barriers. It hit the meat and clipped. My anatomy's dying here. So it's the lower right part of the heart. So the hole went in nice and clean, and then out the back, it's as if, and then of course the meat on the back side, it's like the bullet didn't expand until it started like almost heading out of the heart. It came in, not expanded, but it came out starting to expand, and then expanded past the heart. And so had that thing not expanded, it still would have done its job. And then it started expanding, like I said, on the almost as it exited the heart, and then got into the back side of the meat there again. And that was I was just like, that was neat. That was to look at that over and watch that.
Well, and that was another thing that I learned, especially after talking to people like Haggard and Roberts and Bulkey, and that the primary function of that expansion is to control penetration, not necessarily to create that larger wound channel that everyone wants. But as you said, how many people died from the expansion versus the penetration?
Right. And that's one thing about hollow points is the engineering of them. If you run a hollow point too fast, they open up too fast, they expand too quick, they act like a parachute, and you won't get the penetration. And there's that old silver tip thing. And the opposite way, if they don't expand at all, then they act like a full metal jacket, whatever, and they'll just keep going right on through. So the other thing, and that's an engineering thing. So you look at, say, for example, like the gold dot short barrel round for like revolvers, which was a 38 plus P or just shy of plus P. That's not the same bullet that they have in a regular round, because that bullet has to do its job in a shorter period of time, because it's only got an 1 7/8" barrel or whatever you're running it out of, 2.5 up to 1 7/8" to 2.5" barrel snub. So it's it's not the same bullet. They don't take it off of this round and stick it in this one going, okay, here's a short barreled. They don't do that. They have to re-engineer the bullet so it's going to perform the same out of the short barrel as it would, say, a 4-inch revolver or whatever you got. Same thing with, if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, I think they also made the gold dot short barrel, I think in a 45 auto, I believe, for the little... I think for the short guns, for like the Colt officers and the little, whatever they had back then, I think they made a short barrel for the 45 auto as well, because a lot of people were carrying those compact back then. But that's not the same 230 grain bullet that they would have in a regular, 5-inch or whatever. It's a different engineered bullet to do what it needed to do without all the velocity. But it still had to check the 2 boxes. It had to pass the FBI standard for penetration, and then the engineer and the company wanted it to expand. So now we got to work on the expansion. And so there's that delicate power band of the hollow point. It's got to be within to be able to operate.
Yeah, it is amazing seeing gel tests, from seeing it myself with my own eyes, and seeing other people doing the tests and the engineering feats, how they've almost perfected the penetration control based on the expansion. It's amazing. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't, something happens. The round's going to strike something and it's not going to be able to expand to its fullest.
Yeah.
But in optimal situations where you have that expansion and that controlled penetration, it is so consistent. And to me, it's amazing that what technology what it can do.
To me, the HST is far and away. I never seen anything like it before. I've seen it in gel test. I've also seen it pulled out of some people, and it's like, this come out of a gel block or this come out of a person. You couldn't tell the difference. I mean, that thing is probably
right
the most.
There. Yeah,
that is probably the most consistent bullet I've ever seen pulled out of a person. Ever.
That was one of the things I've really appreciated that Haggard pointed out, is when you're comparing pulled out of gel versus pulled out of a human. Yeah, you're seeing the same results.
Yeah,
the rounds you can't tell, and I think that's something that's missed by a lot of people.
Yeah, and you have to also look at bullet for bullet for bullet. You can't take an HST and compare it to an XTP. You're looking at then you're trying to compare like a Ferrari to a 4x4 pickup. You can't. It's not the same. I run a lot of XTPs in my stuff, and I think I sent some stuff to you in 32 and stuff, and then Chuck just had his pocket rocket class here last week or so, and Frank Groth, I think, is the one that posted that picture of the pistol with my 32.
Yep.
And people were, complaining, well, that thing didn't expand. I'm going, yeah, it did. Okay, you have to look at how the XTP is constructed and how it's made to expand. It's not going to flower out like an HST. It's not going to look like a gold dot. It's as some of the guys from Hornady I've talked to and Giles Stock, it's like a crush expansion. It's extreme terminal performance bullet. It's it's made to penetrate deep. It's probably one of the few bullets that is actually designed for both human and animal. In fact, Chuck ran some of my 357 stuff I did for Daryl Bulkey. XTP, it runs out of a snub about 925. Chuck put it in a lever gun, and it looks like a core locked, an old Remington core locked hunting round. It just nice mushroom. Didn't flower out pedal like an HST. It was like mushroom round. But that's what it's designed to do. So you can't take one bullet and say, well, it failed. Well, no, it didn't, because that's what it's designed to do. So people look at, my 32s and my 357s, and I'm running them in their XTP power band, which is around 900, 925, and they're going, well, the thing's barely expanding. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to get deep. We're not, it'll still slow down. It's still getting 20 inches of penetration. It's exceeding the FBI standards. Even my 32s, 32 long is the wad cutter, but they're all getting, but 16 inches and above penetration. They're, even the 32 long is exceeding the FBI standards for penetration. It's like, put the bullet where it needs to go. Plus, most wad cutters yaw and they tumble. I think Chuck has seen that in his gel testings as well, and Mark Fricky has. The wad cutters will yaw. I mean, you get a bullet that's going to turn. Tell me about the wound channel that thing's going to create. So it's get into the side of this stuff, and I see, the godsend, it's like a double-edged sword. YouTube's been great for information, but it's been the worst for information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then me, I'm kind of, my ammo company's pretty small. In fact, I don't even rate as small potatoes. I'm more like tater tots. But you look at trying to appease people. It's like trying to explain it. I'm not published. I'm just the, small guy, whatever. But I've seen enough, been enough. It's like, that's not how things work. And you're going to have to take things and get a frame of reference on the round or whatever and apply it to that. And you can't apply it across the board. You can in some aspects, but you have to look at the engineering and construction on the round and the bullet specifically to make a frame of reference and to give it a good, performance, the word I'm thinking. you know, evaluation type of thing.
So, how does Sammy Speck fit into all of this?
Sammy Speck. So I'm not a big, I don't know the history much of Sammy Speck's been around for about 100 years, I think. I think someone can chime in here. I don't know. You still have a live chat going on? You can see that I can't see something going on? All right, so I probably don't want to see it, but anyway.
Oh, no, it's perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, what I'll do after this is possibly go to some of the comments and address them, because there's some good questions.
Sure. So I'm not the big history on Sam. I think it was designed to get a standard between the firearms industry and the ammunition industry. So if like Matt wanted to come out like with a 300 Landfair, Matt can make a 300 caliber, a 30 caliber rifle round and put it to spec and blueprint it and have someone make a chamber in a rifle, blah, 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 submit it to Sammy. And now you're promoting it all over the social media. And it's like this hot new thing. And then Ruger says, man, it's 300 Landfair, it's really picking up. Maybe we should make it. So they go to Sammy and look at all the blueprints and the ins and outs of this round, the pressure and everything. It's like, they give it to the engineer. He says, here, make a rifle based around that round. And so you have like an encyclopedia reference to have max pressures and all the different ins and outs of that, every round that's pretty much ever made. See, back in the 100 years ago in the 20s, you had a lot of wildcatters out there. I mean, that's where look at Ned, 257 Roberts came in and roughly in there somewhere in, I think, the 30s, 25-06, all these different, 22, 250 based off of the 250 Savage. You had these wildcatters and you had no way of, they didn't have, a lot of these guys didn't have, pressure test barrels and machines and whatever back then. They just whatevered. And I'm sure that, you look at the history of Omer Keith, pushing he had to have blown up several revolvers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so getting Sammy Speck, I think it was to make sure that, okay, let's tone this down and let's just have a place where people can come where when they look at this stuff, they know that this stuff isn't going to blow up in their face. And this is kind of the max pressures and blah, blah, whatever. And so, I'm going to say something, so don't take it out of context. It's probably only take it out of context. Sammy Spec, I look at Sammy Spec, but all the rounds I make don't even come close to even getting to anywhere near max of anything.
And it's not necessary to go to max. Yeah, as the upper limit, as a defensive round, and this is where Daryl's rounds start coming in. I don't.
So that's where I found out. So then enter Daryl Bulkey. So he makes almost 2 years ago now. He makes a post on his DB shooting adventures about some 357 he had. It's failing. It's either too spicy. It's not going off. It's not accurate. Whatever. So I met Daryl down there at the primary and secondary summit. He was there both years, but I really didn't converse with him until the second year because he put on that the Guns of Bonnie and Clyde. And I got down there early on Friday night for that one. That was absolutely just fascinating. So he put on also class for the traits of gunfighters or something like that. And I took that class from him, and he and I talked a little bit. He probably didn't remember me. So fast forward 2 years now, and I get see this post. So I reintroduced myself. I said, hey, I can probably help you. Let's get together. So we get the DB load. So I did that. You posted, I did that Faces of High Desert, and you posted, I think it was a defensive revolvers. You posted what I did on there. Yeah. So he says he wants a load to, he's got arthritic hands. He doesn't, beat the gun up and everything. He's got a lot of antique 357s. He doesn't feel comfortable in shooting because there's not a round out there he feels comfortable putting in there without beating the gun up. And he's got a lot of money in these guns, and you can't replace them. There's no warranty for them. The parts are almost non-existent. So we come up with a load. We go back and forth, I think 3 or 4 or 5 times, and we settle on a load. Well, he's going by feel. I'm going by velocity. So we're well under Sammy Spec for velocity for 357. So he says that's a load right there. So velocity is about 925, 930, which is the current what I'm offering. So then we start discussing, okay, let's do a training round and a defensive round for all your revolvers you're ever going to do. I'm going, thank you for, okay, yeah, just, yeah, that's, okay. So I'm looking at the training round we just finished up on at 925, and now we're looking at defensive round. I'm going, okay, so I'm jumping back. I'm old. I'm actually going to hit 62 this year. I'm going to be eligible for Social Security, right? So I'm going back 40 years, right? And I haven't gotten that out of my head because I used to read all this stuff. I'm going, you can't get reliable performance out of a 357 only going at 900 feet a second. It's just, it can't. Of course, we're talking 40-year technology. So then my mind's rolling back. Okay, let's go up 30 years, and there's Doc Roberts going, yes, you can. Doc, see, so it's like the angel and the devil sitting on my shoulders, right? You got 40 years old guys, and they're going, no, you can't. And Doc's going, yeah, you can. Okay, so I grew up with the 10% ballistic gel stuff, not the clear gel stuff they have now, which is fine. It's just what I grew up with. So I got the mold, mixed up some 10%, put it in the freezer, got it calibrated to the right temperature in the old air. Get the BB gun with the so far into it, calibrated right. And now I shot one of them XTP rounds with Daryl's load into it, and it got 20 inches of penetration and it expanded. And I'm going, this is not right. It's not supposed to be able to happen. Okay, but again, XTPs weren't around 40 years ago. But then again, I was like, well, it didn't expand very much. So I do research, and it's like, it's not made to, it's only made to do what I'm seeing. And it's doing it at 925 out of a snub, right? So I got my test bed was a Model 19 snub, which is 2.5-inch barrel. And I'm going, so I shoot it again. Booyah, I'm getting 18.5 inches. So I'm going between 18 to 20, 21 inches in this 10% calibrated ballistic gel. And it's consistent, 18 to 21 inches. And those XTPs are expanding like they're supposed to. Again, this is XTP, not anything else. It does what it's supposed to every round. And I'm going, this isn't supposed to be doing this. This is fantastic. So then we fast forward, and Daryl and I start talking about 41 Magnum. He goes, let me introduce you to Giles Stock. I don't know who Giles Stock is. Do you know have you met Giles Stock?
I haven't.
You've heard of him?
I think so.
Okay, he used to work for Hornady way back. He used to run I think Gunsight at one time under Cooper. He was down there for many years. So Giles calls me, introduces himself, and we start, because his favorite caliber is 41 Magnum. And he goes, okay, so Daryl talks about, there's two loads of 41 Magnum. It's a Model 58, which is the police load, and then you've got the Model 57 load, which is like 1100, 12, whatever, the 41 Magnum load. And so Daryl, of course, with the hands and everything, he's wanting the Model 58 police load. And it was kind of odd because when I first started in law enforcement in the mid-'80s, two of my mentors were still packing 41 Magnums. So that was pretty cool. So now, here we go, right? Here, all things, yep, back around we coming. And so Giles turns me on to a couple of friends of his he still knew that were retired people, engineers from Hornady. And talking about the XTP, it's like, you put it in its power band is right around 900. And I'm going, well, that's kind of fascinating because that's what everything I'm running it at. So that 32 Magnum you saw that was posted by Frank, that's running just shy of 900, about 870, 860, but it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so I'm talking to these guys about it. It's like, its power band loves that. You put it in there, especially the big bores, you pump it up a little bit over 9, say 930, 940 in there, give it a little bit of wiggle room. It's going to do what it's meant to do. And then if you go above that, you have diminishing returns until you hit about, I can't remember what he said now, like 1300 or whatever, 1300. You're going to see some differences in the bullet performance, expansion, whatever, mushrooming out a little bit more. But the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You're going to get more blast, more recoil. Your follow-up shots are really going to suck. So keep it around low to mid 9s. You're going to love it. And then throw it through a lever gun, which is kind of odd because then Chuck throws my 357 in a lever gun. It mushrooms exactly how that engineer told me it was going to do. And I'm just going, cool. So now we get the 41 Magnum done. I'm working with Giles Stock, and Giles says, keep it right there. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And cool. So then we go with the 44 Special, and I'm doing the same thing with the 44 Special, running a 200 grain, low 9s, right around 900 with a training round, and it's expanding just like it's supposed to expand. And then we go to 44 Magnum, and Daryl's going, I think I'll hold off on the 44 Magnum. He doesn't want anything to do with that,
Well, and if you have a good functional 44 Special, and you're not going after Grizzly,
right?
Why do you need the Magnum?
Right.
Other than
so
cred.
Yeah. So then, so just today, we're working on some lever gun stuff. I just put out the 444 Marlin, I think yesterday, and Steve Fisher says you need to put that in a 44 Magnum so I can, 265 grain in a 44 Magnum. It's like, I'll see what I can do. So we got the training around.
That, Steve, is also a different animal.
Yes. Yep. Hunter, more hunter. Very. But you put a 265 grain. He says, make a 265, 44 mag. It's like not into the hunting rounds for the revolvers yet, but it's not out of the question. But I think if I get nudged hard enough, I'll probably make a hunting round. So we make the same with the 44 Magnum. I think the 44 is running about 1100. We bump it up a little bit more. It's still not a full house 44 Magnum, but it's got some poop behind it. And of course, at 1100, the XTP is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Again, we're not flowering out like an HST, but it's not meant to. And people need to understand that. I get poo-pooed a lot about it. I'll show them online. And so I don't show my gel testing stuff online because I don't want anybody to, while you're doing something with the gel, blah, blah, this wasn't done right. You could do whatever you want to show your product is doing. So Rob Garrett from, he writes stuff for Guns America. He does gel testing. He shows it. Mark Fricke's done some stuff. I let him show the gel testing. Of course, Chuck has, and he shows his gel testing. And then, of course, you saw that, the picture that Frank put out there. I let those guys do it. That way, it's third party. I got nothing to do with it. I send them the ammo. They do it. They have at it. Frank bought his ammo, so it's like, whatever. But, I don't put my gel testing out there. I just think that people are just going to go, oh, no, you're just doing this to sell your ammo. No, I'm not. This is what. So I let those guys, the experts, gel test it and give me the feedback. And I haven't had any negative feedback. You don't need the blast and the recoil. You're beating the gun up. And that's the other thing.
You're beating yourself up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. When I came into the sheriff's office in the late 80s, mid-late 80s, they were running 686s. And the program manager for firearms at that time thought, well, we need to have full power ammo for everything. Qualifications, training, and then we were given 50 rounds a month for our own use, for practice and out there shooting on our own. Well, a lot of the guys weren't shooting their 50 rounds a month, so I was taking everything. I was a shooter. I wanted to shoot. So within a 3-year period, I put 2 686s in the Smith & Wesson warranty department, unbeknownst to me, because they were touted as, a tougher gun than the 19 or the K frames, because these are L frames. And once they got back from the warranty department, we got a letter saying don't shoot these with a steady diet of, full house magnums, duty rounds, cycle your duty rounds once a year through them, but otherwise use 38 special or some downloaded 357 round, because the L frames aren't made for it. And so unlike Ruger, that'll, if you're not shooting it, then you can pound fence posts with it. But the only thing that's really reliable for a full house 357 consistently is an N frame. And I learned that the hard way. And I got the sheriff is on me about putting a couple guns. He says, what'd you do to these guns? I didn't do anything to them. Just shot them, blah, 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 whatever. And so, after a few phone calls back and forth with Smith & Wesson, he finally apologized to me. But, unbeknownst to me, so now I'm telling people, it's like, don't give that a steady diet. Of course, they don't. I'm behind. I'm a keyboard warrior. I don't know, which is fine. And I understand that. I have to look at the other side of it. People don't know me, which is fine. And I say, and here's kind of what you're going to expect if you keep doing that with that gun.
Well, I'm even concerned with an end frame, depending on what the construction of the frame itself is. So if it's one of these super lightweight, the 327 Performance Center, yeah. I would be very concerned of a steady diet of 357 on that guy.
See, when I talk end frame, I go back, to my growing up years. So I'm looking at
the real end frame. So
yeah, model, 27s, 28s type of thing. That's what I go back to. Yeah. And it's like, so I was at I got invited to the Smith & Wesson dinner before SHOT Show because my ammo company supplies ammo to two of their ambassadors, Travis Kennedy and Chad Robichaud. So I got invited down. Smith & Wesson invited me down to their dinner, which I thought was pretty cool. So I got to shoot all the new guns, whatever, and they had the mountain guns there, 1 in 357. And I was standing, went out to the the dinner was held at an indoor range, and I'm watching, went out to the, into the range, that range area there, and I'm watching people, and they're smacking them cylinders. It's like, I'm just cringing. They're slamming them, and they're, I'm just dying here. So finally, one of the guns, they quit shooting it, and I said, "What's wrong with it?" They said, "Well, the cylinder won't close." I'm going, "Well, I wonder why." So I go up there, and it's just the ejector rod had backed out. So I screwed it back in and started shooting it. But within 2 or 3 rounds, we're in a booth, on an indoor range, and the cylinder got out of time. It was spitting lead so bad, it was bouncing off the inside of the booth and smacking me upside the head. It's like it was spitting that bad. It's like, okay, I think this gun's done. You guys have just totally thrashed this thing in a period of 2 hours, pretty disheartening. You got a nice gun there, but revolvers have their limitations, but if you treat them, it's like anything. I think, what's that saying that Larry Vickers did? If you treat your pistol if you treat your 1911 like you treat your lawnmower, buy a Glock or something like that, So you still got to be careful slapping cylinders and stuff with revolvers. You're going to put them out of time and cause a lot of problems.
Well, I remember why was bringing that up, Brian, and it made some people upset. And it's a fact. It's just a fact. It's a mechanical device. It is. It's the same thing where, I won't mention. Well, defend like that on defensive revolvers. I'll post something on there, and there's a couple other pages there on Facebook. The same thing that you and I are on, and somebody will post something, and I'll put something on there. And good gosh, you got 8-10 people piling on somebody. Like, okay, whatever. And then one guy says, "Well, I've checked these names you said, and no one's been published," and blah blah blah. Well, okay, I'm not been published. No, I'm not that big of a deal, but I don't. Of course, they don't know me from any keyboard, and I understand that. I have to keep that in perspective. Well, though, if you pay attention, and if you're paying attention long enough, and your circles happen to intersect with some of these other circles where some of these published people are, you might have been to events where you've seen them perform, and then you just kind of go, "Yeah, I'm not going to read that person's stuff anymore."
No,
so just being published doesn't automatically mean legit. No, it just means you got paid. Good job.
Yeah. Somebody put on I can't remember what page it was on. They're looking for something to do with 38, whatever. And I said, run a wad cutter. Yeah, but it doesn't expand. No, it doesn't have to. Well, I want something that's going to penetrate and expansion. I said, well, the short barrel gold dot, good luck finding it. I hear they're going to put out a batch of it, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it's out yet or not. But I said, good wad cutter. I said, less blast, less recoil, faster follow-up shots.
And that's all based off of some other person's interpretation of what's important. Clearly, they have never heard of Doc GKR, Doc Roberts.
That's it. So I actually put I put a link to that podcast out there, and the first 2 people were making fun of it. Well, who was the 4th guy? I don't recognize him. He was the older guy with the beard. You had on that one. You had Chuck, you had Doc, and you had the other guy.
I will have to look it up right now.
Was he DOD or something, or CIA or something? He was. I can't think of his name.
Okay. Oh, you mean Chuck Haggard? Yeah, you don't know who that is.
No, the other one. No.
Oh, Fred Lucas.
Fred Lucas.
So Fred worked for Crane, and he just watches these on occasion. He has a really cool background at working for Crane, working on different special projects. And he just always has a really cool perspective of stuff. And I guess he helped debunk one of the ammo. What was that? It was a super fast 5.56 round, which it turned out to be all fraudulent. That the military was looking at. Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of that stuff Chuck mentioned in that same podcast about this company called Liberty Ammo.
Oh, Liberty.
Yeah, they're running this ultra light stuff. They were there at SHOT, and I never heard of them, and I walked up. I'm going, what is that?
Super lightweight.
This name sounds familiar. Where did I hear this? It's like, and finally, it's like, I'm getting old, so I was like, oh, Chuck mentioned it, and they had a gel block sitting there, and exactly how, and I said, can I take a picture of this? I said, oh yeah. So I got a picture of it, exactly how Chuck described it in your podcast. Most of the petals come out about like 4 inches, and then you have this little tiny little BB size, little BB thing that penetrates like maybe 14, 16 inches, whatever. And I'm just going,
this is not something to brag about.
Yeah, no. And I did the same dang thing like I did in front of that dock. I thought I was talking inside my head, and I must have talked a little bit. I said, this is snake oil. And it's like, oh my gosh, because there was somebody there next to me that he was, trying to sell this thing to. And I just, pretty much, it's like, I said, this is not going to stop anybody. I said, it might. I mean, obviously, your little pellet right there, the single little job there, if it perforates the heart, whatever, I said, you'll probably get a psychological stop out of it, because it's probably going to hurt like hell, obviously. But
it's giving the doctor so much work to do. That doesn't seem like one.
But I said, if you have a determined person, it's not going to do it. I said,
and that's who knows if there's any barrier penetration, what's the round going to do? Or if there's barriers to penetrate, how is the round going to perform?
Probably like a Glazer safety slug.
And that's not a good thing.
Not. Yeah, it's like not. I think you'd be better off like a 22 long rifle. I mean, how many people? Yeah, I mean, how many people survive that round? Like 0. I mean, they don't die right away, but unless they get to a doctor within whatever, it's like, yeah. But if you put a mask on and flatten the curve, we're good. We're good to go.
Right.
Yeah, we're good to go.
That's funny. Have some comments here, and then after the comments, we'll do a quick little break, refill drinks, quick bathroom break, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Then I want to talk about the resurgence of 32.
Okay.
And then other fun calibers. So let's see here. We have, this is from Matt, regular viewer, supporter, talking about how we could have the exact same rounds go into 10 different people, and the structure of the people are all slightly different. And so the rounds are going to slightly be different. Matt has to say this. That makes me think of, and he misspelled this, and he says it later in the chat. This makes me think of Reston's ability to survive his shooting. Jared Reston got shot a bunch of times with the first shot right here into his jaw with a 45 ACP. So his ability to survive the shooting, partially due to his increased musculature versus out of shape fat people, and how bullets travel. And Jared at the time, and probably still, is in very good shape. And typically when people are in very good shape, their bodies respond to trauma much more better. So let's see here. Here's another one, Brian Quinn. I believe I know the answer to this, but is there any advantage to a bullet breaking apart in an animal or human? I believe no, but I want to share the info. Here people claim all the energy stays in. And so my response to that, and right now we're talking about handguns, how much is energy the wounding mechanism here, or is it the actual penetration and the tearing, the crushing of the round? There's not a magical energy field creating trauma. Energy is part of this. Energy is what is helping the projectile to move, but ultimately the wounding is being caused by the tearing, the crushing, the poking of the round. And basically, duty and subcaliber pistol rounds are just doing that. They're poking a hole. And this is Doc Roberts 101.
Yep. Yeah. You look at archery.
Yeah. Yes.
Poking a hole. And then, of course, with a broadhead, either a tri-blade or a quad blade head. When the animal moves, obviously there's tearing and cutting going on. But prior to that, the damage is done with 100% of. There's no breakage, nothing coming off of an arrow per se. I mean, unless the arrow breaks in half or something. But there's not parts or pieces coming off that arrow. It's it's in there. All the energy is expanded into it. And it's one deal. You want, in my opinion, you're going to want that maximum weight retention of a bullet. I've found that it does a whole lot better than stuff breaking apart. I go back to that Liberty ammo thing. All the little petals all break off.
And rip ammo did the same.
Yeah, there was a couple other snake oils that were out there late 90s, early 2000s that, all these petals are supposed to break off and do all this damage, and it found out that, well, yeah, it's going to do damage, obviously, but if the person's determined, it's not going to do enough to make Hill's beans a bit of difference. It's just going to piss them off more. It's like a Glazer safety slug. A lot of it was just surface stuff and never got any penetration. If you got someone who just ow, 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 yeah, they're psychologically, I'm done, and it's going to stop them. But I don't want to have to rely on that at all. I've been in a few OISs myself, and bullet retentions. The one guy I hit, it was a DUI stop. I took him low center in the teeth. It was one of our 686s. It was the Remington 158 grain, the semi-jacketed hollow point, so a lot more of exposed lead. And the bullet hit him low center on the teeth, and the bullet just pretty much exploded on impact. It had no penetration whatsoever. The only thing that put him down was a shard. This is where the bullet actually came apart and actually helped. The bullet came apart. Actually, well, it would have killed him if it had gone all the way through, because it would have taken out the lower brainstem. But the bullet exploded, and pretty much a particle of it or some shards of it went up inside in the brain cavity, and that put him down. But that's an anomaly.
Well, and that's one of the things. Oh, I was going to say, that's one of the things we need to pay attention to. There's a reason why we can prepare now. We're not doing, well, this is better than a sharp stick. No, we want to stack the deck in our favor, right, and have everything optimal. Right. So I also happened to be an XTP, hit one of those autopsies I went to, hit him in the teeth, and that sucker plowed through the teeth and did its job as it was supposed to. And so a better constructed bullet, plowed through, didn't matter what it hit, actually come in just above the jawbone and took out a chunk of the jawbone, the teeth, and just kept on going. And of course, then it tumbled, but it held together. I think after we waited, if I recall, that bullet was in upper 90 percentile of its weight retention. And it's did it exit? No, did not exit. It stayed in. Crazy. Quantum efficiency has this to say. SAMI is useful for making mass production ammo. When you're making your own ammo, you rarely use SAMI, as you're bumping your shoulder back, 0.002-ish from where it's fire formed in your own chamber. Yeah. I look at SAMI spec when I started doing the lever action rounds. I wanted to see what the SAMI spec is for the chambers, and for the most part, of course, lever action guns. I'm looking at 40 years ago. I'm still back in that era. Sorry, Matt. The Marlins and the Winchesters back then. Good guns. The chambers were in spec, whatever. Nowadays, the worst offender that I see are ARs. I make 223, and I get people call me. I think over the 10 years I've been doing this now. I think I've had 4 different five, 6 different calls. But your ammo doesn't run in my gun. I was like, well, of course, they're always going to blame the ammo first. And I'm finding, I do armor classes for ARs about twice a year, and I'm finding chambers flipping all over the place. And that, I think ARs are probably the worst offenders. There's probably some others that are probably as bad, but I have more exposure to the AR platform. So I can, I'm saying that's just, it's horrid out there. And so I'm going, not so sure. It might be, oh no, okay, of course, which I'm sure you probably have seen this. If you try to say anything about someone's choice of equipment, you may as well slap their mother, so you cannot ever criticize their choice of equipment, parts or pieces. Otherwise, they're going to make their value. They're going to make a troll doll and stick pins in you. So
I'm just going, I've made millions of rounds. I've never had a problem. Well, I said, you ever heard of Kyle DeFore? Yeah. I said, he uses my stuff. I said, Bill Blowers, tap right. Yeah, I've been to, I said, he uses my 223. Yeah. I said, and Bill, now Kyle's running BCM, I think. Bill runs Hodge. And I said, those guns ain't cheap. And I said,
but they're also built to spec.
What's that? Yeah, they're in spec. I said, this is where Sammy comes in. I said, need to have that chamber slugged or checked for Sammy's spec. I said, something's not right with it. I guarantee it. I said, Bill's running my stuff and a very expensive rifle. Never, thousands and thousands around. He's been on with me for 4 years now. Never had a problem. Kyle DeFore, he's been on for about 3 years. I got 2 of the Smith & Wesson guys, so they're shooting just Smith & Wesson stuff. Travis Kennedy does most of the videos of all the new Smith & Wesson stuff, AR platforms coming and pistol stuff. But any new AR coming out from Smith & Wesson, my stuff's getting run through it. And I said, you might, check his videos out. That's all my stuff he's running. And then I said, during COVID, when ammo was hard to find, I said, I got a call, and I met down at this is one of your summit deals again, Matt. I met Mike Mahalski down there the first year. And he calls me during COVID. He said, Steve, you got any ammo? I said, really? He goes, you can't find ammo? Someone like you. And he says, I need ammo, man. We're just, I gotta test all of our guns before we send them out. So I sent him 20,000 rounds down there, and he was using my ammo to test his guns before they went out the door. And so I'm, pretty honored by that. And then I've got Bill Rapier, MTAC Shooting, uses my stuff. And, but let's see. So the question, I just see the question here.
Oh, so this is a follow-up from Quantum Efficiency. I would greatly agree that AR chambers are all over the place. I have a 223 chamber that came from the factory at 1.467. And this is why Chad Albrecht of School of the American Rifle is so successful and so relevant in this realm.
That was that first year you had both Chad and Mike Mahalski down there. And I met with both of them, and Chad had a time where he had no class to teach, he and Mike. And Chad brought that huge AR with him. So I got pictures of him with that huge, 10 times the size AR or whatever. I was actually able to sit down, because like I said, I do a couple AR armor classes a year. I was actually able to sit down with Chad and Mike and going, can I talk to you guys for a minute? I said, this is kind of what I'm doing. This is my outline. This is, my curriculum, what I do. And I went with Chad. Chad is way beyond me and pin gauging and gauging everything. That guy's a gauging maniac. But we went over some of the stuff that I was seeing and he was seeing, and the stuff that I do in my class. I said, I'm not pulling a 16-hour day like you do, which I think is insane, but hey, whatever. But this is kind of, we pin gauge stuff and whatever. And Chad and I were pretty close on some of the stuff. I picked up some stuff from him, obviously. And it's like Chad, Chad goes to all these different classes and picks up stuff from the different armor classes he's gone to, different ways of doing things. And but the main thing we hit on, and Mike Mahalski did the same thing, was chambers. That is the absolute worst part of an AR all over the board. I mean, you can have, you can, like Matt Landfair can have his, Landfair AR company or whatever, and have a company that's a well-known company make the AR for him or whatever, the parts and pieces, contract out the parts and pieces. But it's at what level of
QC
spec do you want these parts to be done at? And that's the problem. Well, it was made, it's like bolt carrier groups. Well, it's made by Microbest. I understand that. Or it was made by Azimuth. I understand that. But at what specs did they give Microbest to make this thing at? So I'm not knocking Microbest. I'm not knocking the company, but I don't know what the contract between the two was to say that was this part made to, mil spec, which is, that term is getting well overused, but that
was overused 15 years ago. What are you talking about?
I know it. It's like the term tactical. If you put tactical to something, you add 20% of the cost to it. So, is it made to the original Stoner specs of the original whatever, or Colt specs or whatever it is now, or where's it at? and that's where gauging comes in. And that's when I started finding a lot of this out of spec stuff out there. And that's why some of these companies really get a bad name. It's like, and then when you're on a Facebook page or a gun forum and a person puts out there, I'm going to do a budget build, I just cringe. Every time someone says budget build, I just cringe.
Absolutely.
I said, so here's the thing. I said, I don't care what you budget build, but your gun is two things. It's the bolt carrier group, the whole bolt carrier group, not just the carrier or the bolt, the whole thing, and the barrel. After that, you can probably budget build on some of the other parts, but those two, you best not. You best not. And make sure you headspace. And of course, some moron usually gets on, I've never headspace anything like that. Mine always work. I'm going, well, until it doesn't. And then you're going to get on here to picture yourself with half your face gone. So, you do you, whatever. But yeah, Sammy Spec really helps with that. What I've done, which was really helped me out, is the 223 I build is the powder I use, which is industry only powder. You can't get it. It's not a retail name for it or a number for it. I can get 5.56 velocity with 223 pressure. So you can use it in either chamber and not have a problem with it. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to do. Is people say, was it 223? That's why my tags on my boxes say 223/556. And they'll say, well, which one is it? I'll say, it's both.
Yes.
It's both. And I said, it's win-win for everybody because, like I said, it's 5.56 velocity. You're not losing anything, but you're also not pushing the pressure limit either. So you can run it in the older ARs, back from the 70s, 80s, that they were 223 chamber, or your bolt gun that's 223. I do some, which will be on the website soon, some varmint rounds. I use some VMAX stuff for people. And I got to watch the pressures on that thing. And so the powder I'm using, it's a really forgiving powder. I can use it in a 308, a 30-06. I can use it in a lot of different stuff, and the pressures just aren't there. And so that's the stuff I use. And like I said, Kyle and Bill and all these other guys have been using it for years and zero problems. And it's once fired brass. I'm going to be switching to new brass here probably next month. The once fired stuff I've been getting, there's been a lot of rejects. I won't put it out to the public. The quality just isn't there as it used to be off of police ranges. I don't know. They must, after they shoot this stuff, they must go out there and tap dance all over it. I have no idea.
Probably.
Yeah. But which was really funny, a quick story. Kyle DeFore calls me up and says, hey, do you make a long range 223? And I said, well, I do for my friends for the last few years. He goes, send me some. So it's a 77 grain Match King. So I sent him some. So then he, about 2 weeks later, I get phone calls, wanting to order some 77 grain. I said, how'd you hear about this? And he goes, well, I was in Kyle's class and he was shooting it. And blah, blah. I'm going, oh, I said, it's not in production, man. It's like, okay. So I call Kyle. I was going, hey, what's going on? He said, oh man, you send it to me. I'm going to be using it. So, it's cold bore shot stuff, man. Your stuff's either going to work or it's going to not. So if you don't have it in production, I suggest you do it. It's like, okay. It's like, I don't know if you ever talked to Kyle DeFore before, but he's pretty much matter of fact, and stuff like that. And so,
matter of fact, I think he's overdue to return. It was years ago. He was on, I think, within the first year-ish.
So then I started doing it, and then people were really, it was on one of his posts he made on Instagram about it. He was at 600 yards and doing B8 targets and just nailing it. And the guy's saying, so I got on there and said, yeah, it's, I'm making it up, but whatever. He goes, what brass you use? And I said, it's once fired brass. And there was such a freaking silence on that. And he goes, you're using once fired brass? I said, yeah. And is it getting that kind of performance? I said, yeah. I said, we're not looking at taking a hair off of a flea at, 600 yards here. But I said, if you can keep it all, in an 8-ring, 800 yards, I think we're doing pretty good here, for once fired brass, mixed head stamp, right? I think the biggest thing is the powder I'm using, and then the charges are consistent. Like when I scale out my stuff, I go to 100th of a grain. Most companies my size are running to 10th of a grain. I run to the 100th of a grain. I can dial my stuff in a lot. I can, even a few hundredths of a grain, especially at, the bench rest guys, whatever, it can make a difference depending on the volume of the case, which obviously affects pressure. But I go out to 100th of a grain, and I can really dial those loads in.
So just for people listening, just because I'm Matt, I'm your friend. 100th is a lot smaller than a 10th.
A 10th, yeah.
Just so you know, like the whole debacle about the quarter pounder versus the.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that part, yeah. And people are saying, well, how can you do 100th of a grain? I said, because my scale reads it to me. I use a lab scale. I don't use the scales that most people use from RCBS or Hornady or most of the reloading companies. I go to a lab company, and that's the scale that I use, and the scale is extremely expensive. So and it's dead nuts accurate, and so that's what I do my loads off of. So every load that you buy from me is based off that scale. And amazingly enough, these Mark 7 machines, those powder drops, they will stay within that 100th of a grain.
Cool.
They do really well.
So we still have a couple more comments to address. We'll take a quick pause. We'll go back to the comments. Then I want to talk about the rise of 32.
Okay.
I want to talk about machine solids, projectiles. I also want to talk about your clients, about the people like Bill, who are your normal, the end users that listeners may be familiar with. And I dropped my phone. And we're back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a new addition, and I kind of like it. I was able to run upstairs, make sure everyone's still alive, and run back downstairs. So let's see.
So I was listening to your ads there for Walther.
Yes.
So Bill Blowers and Bill Rapier both do stuff for Walther, and I provide the ammo for those guys. And so if they're shooting new Walthers and doing stuff, they're using my ammo.
Yeah. So you have Bill, you have Rapier, Blowers and Rapier.
The two Bills.
Yeah. And then who else? Who else was on that list?
Kyle DeFore.
Yeah.
Travis Kennedy, Chad Robichaud, and then Daryl Bolke.
And that's on the official side. And then who knows? Because I know I'm running your stuff. Now, I don't remember if it was. I can't keep track of what I had for breakfast. I know for a fact I have 32. Did I have some 38 too?
I think I sent you some 38. Yeah.
Okay. And it's amazing how people are still poo-pooing wad cutters as an option. Or
Yeah.
We have people like Mark Fricky who can basically show you on paper, this is what you're looking at. And what you've discussed has just reinforced these concepts. We don't need these super hyper velocities. We don't need this amazing expansion.
No, that was the first thing, is that you don't need this thing going, like Caleb Giddings would say, Mach Jesus, or Mach 5. Like you go back to the 357 Daryl load. We're low nines to mid nines, and I'm getting expansion and how that XTP should be performing, and it's doing it out of a snub. I was going, okay, you can't find the gold dot short barrel, which is the gold standard for a snub load, but I guarantee these XTPs, you put them around, it's going to do its job.
Yeah,
it's going to get the expansion. It's going to do everything it needs to do. Even if you got 4 layers, which I don't like 4 layers of denim type of a test. I think that's idiotic. No one wears 4 layers of denim. But
Canadians.
Yeah, the Yukon, Alaskan. It's going to punch still 16, 18 inches of penetration. It's going to punch through it. So heavy clothing. You just want a bullet that's going to get through all that stuff. And an XTP will definitely do that without a problem. In fact, a lot of the rounds, HSTs, whatever, sometimes won't even expand. In fact, they're such perfect condition when you pull them out of the gel block after going for 4 layers of denim, I can reload them. They're in that, that kind of condition.
I have seen that myself. So this random person, Black Ring Tactical, has this to say. I've shot high desert ammo for the last 3 years exclusively. I won't buy anything else.
That would be Travis Spar.
He also said he's going to be mad at me when he sees me trolling him.
No, that's good, Travis. No, he's a good guy. He's got a training business up there, out of Olympia area, Washington State, and that's my stuff.
So I don't know if anyone's making this or have ever thought about it, but a 25 or 27 caliber or diameter caliber made to be put in a J-frame would be pretty sweet, especially if you could stuff 6 or 7 in a J-frame. And for me, so I just read that for people listening, not reading. For me, that's where 32 falls right in. The 32 H&R mag, 32 long, 32 short, and 327 Fed mag, which I think it was Haggard who really started harping on it, and I had to look into it. Similar to Chuck Pressburg and the whole Roland Special thing, talking about this concept, and I have to see this for myself. And then seeing it for myself and going, oh, there's something here. I really like this.
I've not seen anybody talk about those calibers in there. You're starting to get closer down to like a 22 yep. Magnum. I mean, a 22 Magnum is, I think, out of a snub. It'll go through a cow skull.
And it's loud.
It's loud. It is, yeah. I carry one. I carry a 351C in the pocket all the time. They're up close and personal. You put one punch, it'll do its job.
Yeah.
It's.
And so his follow-on comment was, I love my 351C and my 632 UC, but it'd be cool to split the difference.
Yeah, I run I run the exact same grouping, except mine's a 432, so a blued version of it. But yeah. But the 32s, people would poo-poo that. I'm just going, don't. It passes the FBI standards. And,
in the pocket.
Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. So the 32 came about right after Revolver Roundup. I went down to Gunsight Revolver Roundup in 2023. Daryl called me shortly thereafter, said, hey, can you make 32? I said, I can make anything. What do you got? He goes, well, I need you to make it calibrated to a certain revolver. I said, well, send me the revolver and I'll calibrate it to the sights. He goes, well, I can't do that. There's NDA. The thing's not out yet officially until SHOT Show of 2024 or last year. And I'm going, well, how am I supposed to calibrate it to a gun I don't even have? He says, well, we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. You make the round and send them to me. We'll test it on the prototypes I've got, and I'll let you know where we're at. I'm going, okay, I just need a launch. I'll need a launch pad. He goes, well, see if you can find like a 327 LCR. I said, okay. Had to have been fate, because within 3 days I found one on a local gun forum for sale. $300. It's like, whoa, I'm on that one.
That's unreal.
It is.
Those are going like for what, 6 right now?
Yeah, I'm not tracking the price. But like,
until the 6. No, and I have a 432 as well. And love it. Great shooting gun. Before that, my go-to was a 327, the LCR. Fantastic gun.
So I do the rounds out of the LCR. I just calibrated them to the LCR, and we went back and forth, I think 3-4 different times. And he said, that's it. It's calibrated to this new gun. I said, okay. And then, so that was wad, those are wad cutters. So, and Brian Eastridge and I have this thing going on. So Rob Garrett has this thing called Sunday Night Snubs on Instagram. And here about a month or so ago, Brian was on there. He wasn't on as a guest or anything, but he was, listening. And someone made something about lead, and I just made a comment, lead is such a vulgar compound. And Rob says, okay, Steve, that's enough, whatever, and I didn't, that's the first thing I ever said. And so Brian and I have been going back about lead. So he and Daryl made this video recently about the mountain guns came out, and then they're talking about loads, and Brian actually said that. He goes, well, Steve doesn't like lead, but I like to cast lead load. He does that right in his video. It's like, so he sends me that, he cuts that out and sends me that excerpt. So anyway, so I despise lead only because of my machine spec here. I'm running, I'm trying to get production out, like my 9 machine, if I can get 10, 12,000 rounds out a day. I need the production people because I service some law enforcement agencies with their practice ammo. And lead, you're just having to clean out the dies every couple thousand rounds. The bullet feeding gets all lead stuff in it. It's not worth my time. If I'm a hand loader, so be it. Great. If you're trying to get production out, lead is like the worst thing ever. So there's a company back east I get my wad cutters from, and the coating on this stuff is probably as close to like a spray-on bed liner for like a pickup truck. You can take your fingernail on it, you can't even scratch it. If you take a knife to it, you better be sharpening your knife afterwards. I don't know what this stuff is. It's some cosmic whatever, but it's harder than anything I've ever seen on a bullet before. So it's fine. It runs through my machines, doesn't leave any residue. It's great stuff. So that was the wad cutter it's calibrated to the UC guns, and it actually calibrates to the LCR at the same deal because that's all I had at the time, and it eventually calibrated to the both. I think you're like, go ahead.
Oh, so in your experience then, were you not a 32 user prior?
Nope.
So how has this experience adjusted or changed your mind with 32?
We go back to the same deal again. It says, okay, so Daryl says, okay, got the wad cutter. Guess what we're heading to next? So I said, you want a defensive round, don't you? He goes, yep. I'm going, okay, see what I can find. Luckily, XTP, Hornady makes a 32, 100 grain. My wad cutter is 98, 100 grain. I said, okay. So again, I go back to what my recent research and discussions have been with other people in the industry. It's like, get it in the 900 range and it'll perform. And booyah, I get it about, I think I'm at, looking at my board here of all my secret herbs and spices. I think it runs about 870. And we saw that picture that Frank mentioned, posted out there. It expands. It's doing it, every time. And so here I am mixing up gel again. I'm going 32, really? No idea. I mean, I remember when it came out as a kid, in 1984, came out, the H&R came out with it. And I thought, hang on. I got to plug in my computer here. My battery's getting a little low.
It happens.
It happens.
Well, and I remember hearing or reading that James Bond carried a 32 ACP, and I thought, what? That's just dumb. Nowadays, I like 32 ACP. That's a cool.
Yeah, I thought about getting one as a kid, back in the 80s when that came out. That'd be pretty cool, and I just never got one. And then here it comes up again. Here we go, full circle again. And so I'm out there with a gel block, and I'm going, really, 18 inches of penetration. The XTP is opening up. It's like, dang you, Daryl. Now I got, And so, load. So I got the XTP, shot the snot out of a block, and it's like, it's doing everything it's supposed to do. I can't deny it. You can't. It'd be so it's too light. No, it's not. You put the, again, people get away from, okay, so let's put the onus and the responsibility and accountability on you people that are behind the launch pad a little bit, with where your bullet placement is supposed to be. And I guarantee you put it where it's supposed to be, it's going to get the penetration where it's supposed to, where it goes. And I found out in, listen to that last podcast with you and Doc talking about gel testing. Generally, if you're going to get the results in a gel block, you're going to see it pretty much in a human. Some differences, but if it's going to perform really well in a gel block, it's going to do well in a human. And that was one of the things that I found out throughout that period when I was doing that. It's like I'm seeing these bullets perform at X, same way I'm seeing in gel block, barring to not hitting, jawbone or teeth or, oddball stuff. But that XTP blowed right through them teeth. And I'm looking at that going 32. It's like, 32, Okay, all right. I'm,
There's
less blast, here. Less recoil, right?
So easy to shoot. So fun.
Yep. So I had to get me a 32, so I got one. And then Daryl hits, 32 long. It's like, well, that's a what? So I'm going back and I'm reading some research, and 32 long is the lowest caliber. No, don't quote me on this, but I think it's the lightest caliber that still meets the FBI penetration standard. Is 32 long wad cutter.
And that's even better. Oh, I love 32 long. Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So my wife is not a big firearms person, but I got her an old Model 31, 3-inch, and just got it finished for her birthday. Got some Gary Eastridge, Brian Eastridge's dad, has that firearms company, that store over there back in Oklahoma. He got me a set of Stag stocks for it. Just put it on there. Less blast, less recoil, great follow-up shots, and we're getting, I think Mark Fricky was getting close to 18, 20 inches of penetration from a long, and the wad cutter is in and up butt first, so it's yawing, it's turning in there, and that, which means you're getting some good damage in there as it's going through there. Anytime you can get a bullet to turn, it's gonna open up that hole more and cause more damage. And that thing reliably almost hits butt first when it ends up in the gel block.
I love telling people about it, and I love going to the range, whether it's a police day or just buddies getting together, and they haven't messed with revolvers, and they definitely haven't messed with anything 32, especially 32 long. And we're going to be shooting 45s, 9s, 40s, you name it, 357, all the regular stuff. And then I kind of giggle a little. You're going to shoot a 32 long now. Here's this little tiny bullet.
Yeah.
Don't discount it. This loaded in the right gun with the right ammunition, this is a viable defensive thing, and you shoot it and you can't help but giggle because this is so much fun. And this is not, there's nothing to it. I think it's just as you just pointed out, if you have people that might be a little sensitive to recoil, to the report, the noise, the blast, it doesn't get much better than that. 22 definitely is a great option, but this is a little bit more. And
this checks all the boxes for people that are, again, like you said, recoil and blast sensitive. You can almost shoot them things almost without any hearing protection, almost. Especially a long. It's like, this is.
And you can make a full day of it and not get worn out, except for the double action trigger press. Yeah, that's gonna You're gonna get a good workout there. But other than that, the round itself going off is going to be very pleasant.
Funny you brought that up. I do a couple of revolver classes. I got a firearms training company as well. I do some revolver classes. And people within about throughout that about half a day, their hand is given up on them. I said, you know what? I said, striker fire guns have made pansies out of all of us. Our hands have gone wastefully limp because of not running a double action revolver after all these years. I said
1911's even worse.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A well-made 1911. Man, that's a tee-hee.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so then I got the hollow point done for the defensive part of things, and then I needed to find a training round to match that one. And nobody makes, of course, I don't make my own bullets. Nobody makes a TMJ or a FMJ equivalent in a 32. So I went back to the same company that makes my wad cutter, and they make it's a cowboy bullet. It's like a round nose flat point. Kind of looks like something you'd see on a 45 long Colt or something, but it's 32. Same hard coating on it, same grain as the hollow point 100 grain. And I got it matched to the defensive load. So all my revolvers now, except for the 32 long and the 45 long Colt, have a training round, which is cheaper to shoot, and a jacketed hollow point, which is a defensive round, and they both shoot point to sights. So you can switch back and forth to one and not have to worry about your sight movement, whatever. And the load development on revolvers is way, way intricate. There's so many different tolerance stacking that could be possibility in revolvers. And so I get a lot of people that will call me and say, I'm not getting the velocity you're saying you're getting out of it. I said, well, here's kind of the scoop on revolvers. I said, when I do load testing, especially load development for revolvers, first thing I do is I pull the cylinder and I pin gauge all the cylinders to make sure they're all the same size. If they're not, I note that and I mark them. which one's which. Is that going to be a change in my velocity? And so,
This falls perfectly.
2.5 inch. 2.5 inch.
Oh, so the question is, I'm joining late, but interested in what barrel it's load.
2.5 inch.
Measure that.
That was the base platform was my Model 19 snub, which is 2.5 inch barrel. So it's calibrated out of that.
So pin gauge.
So I take the cylinder out and I'll pin gauge them, and I measure each cylinder hole to see what they're gauged at, the measurement of, and I make note of each one of them. Then I have to look at the gap between the cylinder and the forcing cone, where that's at, and then you look at the forcing cone itself. Is it wore out? Is it beat up? Is it centered? Is it whatever? Is it to 11 degree, 5 degree, whatever whatever they're cut at, depending on what company you got, and then you look at the barrel. So before I do load development on that, and then you have the other things with different guns. Is the thing timed correctly? Is when the bullet, when you fire the bullet and it makes that jump across that gap, is it centered on that forcing cone, or is it off to one side? Because that's going to affect velocity and bullet performance, because now if it's not centered on that cone, you've now deformed the bullet just enough to where that thing is not going to be very accurate. It's pretty much going to be out of round, out of spec. It's kind of like a tire that doesn't have it's not been got the wheel weights on it. Balanced, correctly, sorry, balanced. So all this stuff comes in effect, and then I will slug all my test bed barrels, test bed guns, like this Model 19 2.5 inch that I used. I will actually slug the barrel and measure it to see where it's at, if it's in spec or not, and because that all affects performance, accuracy, and velocity. So you have a revolver has a high amount of possible tolerance stacking, and all of those have to be in. And so it was kind of odd, and not odd, it was interesting. Lipsy's did Daryl and Y did a quick thing with Lipsy's at SHOT Show, and toward the very end of it, about the 1730 mark, Brian chimes in with a new Ruger 41 Magnum. And then Jason Klosner gets in there and talks about the 41. Every 41 he's ever had has always been dead nuts on, probably because no one makes 41s much and all the tooling is good. But you get into the 44s and the 45s, we go back to the AR chambers. There's some variances all over the board with them things. And so that's one thing that you're going to have to people you need to understand between the SAMI spec here and then the firearm you get and then the ammunition you buy. It may not be the ammo. It may be the gun's just a little bit off in one of those areas I just talked about: cylinder, gap, forcing cone, barrel, and it all adds up. And so if all those aren't in spec with each other, you're not going to get the performance that is guaranteed from that round. And you're going to say, well, it's the ammo. May not be. So it's kind of like having a 1911 or a Harley. If you're not a mechanic, you may not want to own one in a sense, right? So, or a race car. But so if you buy these older revolvers and you want to shoot them and whatever, you may want to have one checked out if possible. So I do gun shows once in a while for my ammo company, and I always have in my pocket a couple pin gauges. And so if I see a revolver I'm looking at, out comes the cylinder, and I'm throwing a pin gauge down them. And that's the first thing how far off is that going to be? And then I look at the end shake, which is the back and forth movement of the cylinder, and then the gap. And then if I can, I have a little mirror I pack, and I put it upside, so I can see the forcing cone to see if it's wearing on one side of that'll tell you right there if it's not in time right. It'll be wearing on one side of the cone. You'll see a nice shiny spot on one side of the cone versus whatever that's hitting it really shallow or really close up toward the cylinder, and then funneling the round down the cone into the barrel. And that's going to tell me that thing is, it's out of time. It's going to need some help. And it might be just as much as just peening where the hand hits the lock mechanism on the back side of the cylinder. But that's outside of a lot of people's wheelhouse to be able to do that kind of stuff. But those are the things to look for. And it affects ammunition performance, and you have to understand that. And so I have to, when I make ammo, I try to make it to the lowest common denominator. It's like a race to the bottom, especially with 223. If you go back to the AR platform where it's all over the board, I have to tighten my specs down to make sure it's going to fit the most widest variety I can. And so some guns aren't going to like it. Not that it won't run. It's that maybe the accuracy isn't there because I can't, extend the bullet out to hit the grooves and the lands and stuff and whatever. And it just doesn't fit in your chamber or whatever as well as it might fit in another one, but it will run. And so it's like, well, your ammo isn't accurate. Well, tell Kyle before that when he's pegging stuff at 600 yards with my 55 grain, I dare you, go ahead and you tell him that, So I know it's accurate. It's just, we got tolerances we have to look at, and it's something I can't deal with. And so if you don't like the ammo, if it could be one ammo shoots better in your gun than another, I'm with you. That's just the name of it. You can't get away from that.
And that's a concept that we've covered at length with shotguns. You got to pattern your gun, and there's no guarantee this latest and greatest super shell is going to be awesome in your gun. You just got to test it out and see.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that takes effort, and you actually have to go and do something, and you can't just rely on Facebook, YouTube, or whatever to tell you what the answers are. You need to see it for yourself.
That's the thing I do with my load development. So every load that I have out there on my website has been, let's just go my revolver rounds. All those have gone through gauging the cylinder, checking the gap, checking the forcing cone, slugging the barrel on my test bed revolvers. So make sure that everything we're at. So I know where it's at. So I have a baseline. So if something isn't right, I could, have you slugged your barrel? Have you done this? Whatever. I said, my loads are based on X, and here's my X. I'm, pretty transparent. Here's what my test bed gun spec'd out at. Does yours come close to that? If it does, then I don't know what to tell you. But I said, I'll bet it probably doesn't.
Yeah. So on the topic of revolvers, make sure I'm highlighting the right one. Black Ring Tactical, again, if you had to recommend a revolver to a normal guy and someone who's probably grown up with semi-autos primarily, what model or caliber would you recommend?
I'm a Smith & Wesson guy, so I still got that Ruger LCR in 3327. I shot some 327. It's like, nah.
No, I'll go 32 or 32 H&R, 32 long or H&R over 327, because 327, just like going 44 mag, I don't need to do that against humans, and I'm not going up against grizzlies. So you
got the blast, you got all that kind of stuff. It's I would go 32. Two things that I found, and it's been pretty well stated out there from other revolver guys. 32, you're not giving up much ballistically from a 38, and you get one more extra round. All the 38s are 5 round, 32s are 6 round. So it's all there. It's like almost the perfect package. Less recoil, whatever. You can get the aftermarket Apex trigger kits, whatever, or send it away and have a decent job done. I use Nelson Ford down there in Arizona for most of my revolver stuff. Although I just picked up a Model 58, and I had from Y's dad, and Y did pulled it apart and did all the gut stuff for me before he sent it to me. But that's what I would recommend. I know people, on those pages on Facebook, Mac, it's like you just want to reach through and just slap somebody. They want it, like there are none so blind as those who will not see. It's like I'm not, you're already set in your ways. I'm not sure why you're even commenting. It's just, it's not productive. To me, it's like when someone calls me and complains about the ammo, and then, okay, so give me a solution. What, tell me what I can do. Help me out here to do my product better, whatever. To me, it's like walking up to your kid and slapping them, going, don't do that anymore, and then walking away without knowing what did I do. I don't know, I'm sure people have badmouthed me like any other company. Well, they make a bad product. They do blah, blah, blah. Well, then I can't fix what I don't know is going on out there. So I would tell everybody, call me, tell me what you're seeing, whatever. I mean, I got my guys, Cal to 4 bill and the 2 bills and travel. If you see something in Daryl, especially Daryl, then you got the offshoot of Daryl, that people that, went around Daryl stuff, Chuck Haggard and Mark Fricky and Brian. And now I got a few gun writers, Shane John and Sheriff Jim Wilson. He uses my stuff. He makes an order about every 3-4 months. I don't know how old he is anymore, but he's getting up there. But he's using my stuff, and I want feedback. If it's something like, well, I wish you'd make a load in this. Well, okay, I may not be doing that, but if there's something within the load that I can tweak, I mean, and I'm small enough, which I don't see myself getting big. I want to be small enough to where, Matt, if you called me and said, hey, can you, within the loads I'm already making, okay, can the 32, can you poop up? I want you to make a batch of like 100 rounds of this wad cutter for me. Can you poop it up like another 50 feet a second? Yeah, I can do that. That's no cost. I just adjust my powder drop and run off your rounds. That's not a big thing. If you want something like, can you make like Steve Fisher wants a 265 and a 44 Magnum, I might do that. It's not that big a deal. It's just a turn of a couple knobs and drop up a little different powder, and it's not that big a deal. But doing a whole different caliber on these machines, it's $1,000 on a conversion. And it's kind of, I'm going to do a shameless plug here, but when another thing I got into 32 with Daryl is Mark 7, which is the machines I got 6 of these things. They don't make a conversion for 32. And so the gal that I have working for me, her husband works at a local dam down here. He's a machinist. His friend is a machinist. His friend is a machinist extraordinaire. He actually makes his own tooling to be able to make parts. So I took the specs off of a shell plate off of a 223, so it was closest to the inner rim of a 32, and he made me a shell plate for a 32 to fit a Mark 7, and then the bullet dropper. There's no bullet drop for a 32. He machined out a bullet dropper.
There is now.
So I'm the only one in the country that's running 32 Magnum and 32 long on a Mark 7. And then comes the 41 Magnum. So if anybody out there who hand loads, who's watching this right now, 32 is its own animal. You look at, if you're a hand loader and you load on like a RCBS or a Lyman or whatever, a Rock Chuck or whatever loader you're running on, there's no shell plate that the 41 Magnum shares with. I mean, there's some calibers a shell plate will work with 2 or 3 or 4 different calibers. They all use the same shell plate. 41's its own animal. So again, we mic'd out a shell plate. I used one off of a 308, and he machined out the groove and got me a bullet dropper. And I'm the only one in the country running 41 Magnum on a Mark 7. So those are the things I go through to get stuff done to people. If you have a load you want within the calibers I make, it's not a big deal for me. But I can't go out and spend $1,000 on a caliber conversion machine for these things. Plus, it takes me half a day to switch out a caliber and calibrate these machines and dial in a load, and then only make you like 100 rounds. Please don't call me. Please don't call me.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I've had people do it. I said, if you want 10,000 rounds, I'll do it for you. What? I said, well, it's going to cost you.
Get a group buy. Get some friends.
Get a group buy, right? But if it's something within a caliber I'm making, it's probably not that big a deal for me to do it for you. And I want to stay that small. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's a question that I personally appreciate, because I think there might be something to this. I want to know why the revolver guys embrace 32, but semi-auto guys rejected 30 Super Carry, because I love 32 now. And I too love 32. I still think there's a possibility that 30 Super Carry could be a thing. The problem is there aren't enough options, because I'm still waiting for, what was the Smith? Oh, what was that? It was like a little tiny 1911 almost, but it's not. But it's a polygun, double stack. It's CSX.
I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that. And 30 Super Carry made so much sense. because you do have the characteristics of 32, and you're going to have greater capacity, but you're also going to have, it's going to be easier to shoot. And if you're able to reach those, CSX, if you're able to get those FBI standards, that sounds like a great gun, especially where we talked about 32 for someone who might be recoil sensitive. And me at my size, I'm larger than average. I wouldn't turn this away. I remember seeing, I think it was HSTs in 30 Super Carry, and I bought a couple boxes thinking, okay, at some point there's going to be a gun. There will be a gun that I will want in this caliber, and it just kind of fizzled, and it's kind of sad.
Not sure why it fizzled. Have you heard why it fizzled? I've never shot one, never had one.
Oh, me neither. Me neither. But I think it's just the limitations, because the CSX came out in 9, and they were promising it to be in 30 Super Carry, and to me that would be a great combination. Same with the SIG 365 in 30 Super Carry. That would be like a magic unending magazine. It would be like unreal how many rounds you could carry, but it would be also easy to shoot, assuming that it's reaching those specs.
How many firearms companies? I haven't tracked. I'm not a 30 Super Carry. I never really tracked it.
Initially, I thought there were only like 3. I thought it was like
three.
Was it like Nighthawk, Kimber, and Smith, or something like that?
Oh.
And maybe someone in chat can correct that.
Everybody was sitting on the sidelines waiting for everybody else to jump in the pool before they did.
Yeah. I think there was a shield available in Super Carry, but I'm not sure.
But
I still think this has potential. The only problem is availability. That's not a problem. And then the weapons that would be compatible with.
Well, you look at 32 now. Federal finally jumped in the 32 Magnum with their some ammo coming out. Finally, took them a year. They were going to sit by. I mean, you had Smith and Wesson and obviously Ellipses going all out. Putting all their chips on the table and hoping this thing would go. But I think you had the right people behind it, pushing it, advertising it, promoting it, etc. And then you had the right people discussing the ballistics of the 32 that made sense, that actually had some knowledge of it and knowledge of ballistics versus, the guy that, shoots watermelons. And so I think the 32 went off, and the 30 probably didn't have that, I guess. I don't know. I never followed it.
Yeah. It was interesting. And so right now I'm on the Smith website, seeing if I can find. Oh, wow. Yeah, they don't even have. Well, maybe they do. Oh, that's why it doesn't show. So they currently have 4 pistols available, and they're all. Well, that makes sense. Okay, so they're Shields, the Shield Plus or the Shield EZ. Okay, so Shield EZ, I owned one, and I think it was in 380. It was a fun gun. It was super easy to manipulate. Throwing 30 Super Carry, that would make sense.
Did make one in 30 Super Carry?
Yeah, 30 Super Carry right here, with or without thumb safety, covering some bases. Unfortunately, the ammo just hasn't taken off.
I picked up one of the Shield EZs. Sometimes I get people on my range older, don't have the dexterity anymore. And the EZ, which I never really looked at the EZ over until I got one. Yeah. There's actually an actual hammer inside that thing. I mean, it's not striker fired. It's an actual hammer inside. I thought that's interesting design.
Cool design, yeah.
Yeah. But if you have dexterity problems, not because you're older, but some people have injuries, their hand, little arthritis coming on a little early, whatever. It makes sense. Oh my gosh, does it make sense? Yeah, I've had a lot of people, and I pull it out, bring it out to them, and go, here, try this. It's like, I need to get one. I said, yeah, you do. If you're going to run one of these things, and that's another thing with people to understand with ammo is auto pistols are ammo driven. Ammo drives the operation of the auto pistol. You can have with a revolver, you can have a bad grip, a bad everything, and the round's still going to go off. You can nose it. You can nose that muzzle and drive it into somebody, and the round's still going to go off. Can't do that with an auto. So, the ammo has to be up to a certain spec for pressure to operate. whatever it's intended to operate. And so I get some guys that say, hey, I've got a Thompson, where you're 45 operate a Thompson. I'm going, I don't know, never tested it. So also I said, here, I'm going to send you some samples and tell me what it does, And so if you've got something that's odd like that, I say, I have no problem. I'll send you some samples, see if it runs it. I've got no idea. I've had some really odd stuff. This one guy had this gun. It was kind of resembled a Thompson, but it was in like a suitcase thing. It was in parts and pieces, and you clip it together. I can't remember the name of this thing. And I said, I don't know if I'll run it, but here, I'm going to send you some ammo, test it, tell me if it runs it or not. And then the same thing with, like I make subsonic 147 grain 9. Will it run? Will it I said, I don't know. I don't know how your gun is sprung. I don't know. I know that what I ran it in, suppressed, out of my MMP, it ran it. So I don't know if it's going to run out of your Beretta or whatever else you got suppressed. So I'll send you some rounds. Here, tell me what it does. If I need to poop it up a little bit, but it'll still say subsonic and it'll still run more guns out there, a wide variety. That's one thing is I don't have a big wide variety of guns like Matt's got there behind him. I don't have that. So my test bed is
screen.
Yeah, my test bed is pretty narrow. I mean, I can borrow guns from people to do certain things, but again, the test bed is pretty narrow. I'm not, again, being small potatoes here, or tater tots is what I call it. I don't have the wide variety of test beds to try. So if you've got something and you're not sure, let me know. I'll send you some, but I want feedback. I want feedback. I don't want to send you ammo and not hear from you again. It's not going to help me out to make a better product. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just make a solid product at a good price. And I'm not here to be a Federal or a Winchester ammo company or Spear, whatever. No. At this point, I'm making niche rounds that used to be made that aren't being made anymore. And like the model, the Model 58, the 41 Magnum load, the police load, that's, and then I ran into Bruce Cartwright. I don't know if you ever know who Bruce Cartwright is. Retired FBI. Used to, he was down at Revolver Roundup, and he did a seminar on the guns of the FBI, the revolvers and stuff like that. And he got a hold of me about the FBI load, which was, I think it was 140 grain 357, which is a very obscure load that very few, it's not out there much until you research it. And I said, here, try these. There's my 158s that Daryl and I did. And he gave them to Ken Hackathorn. And they going, don't make the 140. This is a great load. Stop. Don't do the inside. And then Chuck Haggard wants me to do a load with him based on a 140. He's supposed to send me some bullets that he wants me to load for him, to do some testing. He wants to try a 140 load in a 357. And so we're going to work on that. I mean, I don't have a problem. I'm still small enough where I can do this stuff for people. And I love load development. It takes some time. Luckily, I've got some great people here. I got 2 employees. Eric, he's is a retired Marine. He's younger than I am, but did a few tours over in the box, and he loads for me and packs. And I've got Ashley. She's does my if you ever call and talk on the phone, it's probably going to talk to her. She does my website, keeps the website up, and does all the orders, and does some packing as well. Me, I'm busy with the load development, loading. So, and then talking to my vendors and other people, whatever, developing stuff for people. So that's kind of deal. There's just 3 of us, and they just work part-time.
So we had a good discussion about overall round performance and what bullets do. Why don't we talk just briefly, or it could go for 3 hours if you want, machine solids. Because I know there's been a huge push. There have been some manufacturers, some reputable manufacturers, pumping out some machine solids, especially and I'm talking pistol, I'm not talking rifle. And there's some interesting claims that go with them, based on my research, based on what I've seen, based on comparing notes with friends. There's a place for them. but I have yet to see any machine solid in a duty or sub-caliber round outperform what the gold standard is. The gold standard being like an HST. As far
I will
as
give you, I will give you the Doc Roberts response. They poke holes. I do in my firearms business, I do a vehicle class, and a lot of it is just shooting vehicles, what bullets do on vehicles, because a lot of people have, they don't have the opportunity to shoot a vehicle. Tickles the hell out of them. They can shoot a car, and I've got a local guy here that gets junk vehicles, and he hauls them out, and I'll shoot the snot out of them, and he brings, trade them in, he'll junk that one, and I'll bring another one out, and I'll aerate that one. But if you want to penetrate a car, those are the bullets to use. The Lehighs or whatever, the solids. There's a lot of mechanism in a door that people, the standard hollow points aren't going to penetrate a door. We were shooting this last year. We were shooting, I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s Chevy Tahoe and automatic door windows, whatever. And general hollow points were not penetrating a door. 9mm 40 caliber. They might, depending on, again, the door, because you've got not only the frame, but you have the supports in the door, then you got the window mechanism, the electric motors in there, the lock mechanisms in there, a lot of different things you may or may not hit. But what's been pretty well consistent are those solid bullets. They will, they'll penetrate the door for the most part. But other than that, I go back to Doc, they'll poke holes.
Poke a hole.
They'll poke
there's
a hole,
no
right?
there's no magical additional wounding because it's this hydraulic whatever. Yeah, there's still cells. It's not just loose water that we're made of.
Right. Yeah. So I go back to the I just lost my train of thought. Man, you had it right there, Matt, too.
We're not made of just water. There are cells dividing everything up and structures.
Oh,
so the rotation itself isn't
right. Yeah, you go back to the autopsies, the medical examiner, when they can't tell the wound channel difference between a 9 and a 45. I'm just going.
Yeah.
This stuff is overrated. I mean, I have to go back and reread Marshall and Sanau's thing, but listen to the reading that. I have to go back and refresh myself on that one, but. There's stuff on the internet about all these bullets, supposedly, temporary wound cavity and blah, blah, blah. I hate to say this because few people have done this, but, you haven't been in an autopsy and it really shows, people. It really shows, okay?
So that's one of my favorites. Repeat that first word that you just said, temporary. Yeah, we don't care about temporary.
We don't care about temporary. It's just something that it just moves out of the way and it goes back into place. It's, the pistol bullets don't have the power to do all this stuff. So, and then looking down the wound channel, it's like, hey, doc, tell me what caliber that is. I don't know. I ain't going to know till I find the bullet. I'm just going, duly noted. Tell me, is this thing expanded? Is this thing expanded yet? Or are we still on pre-expansion on the bullet? He goes, well, a lot of that times you can kind of tell. Like I said, when that one deal was the real eye opener for me is when it got probably 7/8 of the way through the heart before you can start seeing some tearing. And it's like, okay, that's about the time that bullet started finally opening up. And we're not seeing that, your first X inches, whatever. And I defy that because I had a discussion with Giles Stock about that and the guys from Hornady. It's like, oh no, as soon as that thing enters a gel block, it's going to expand. I'm going, that's not what I'm seeing in humans. That's not what I'm seeing in humans. I'm seeing penetration in quite a ways before I'm seeing that expansion. It's not expanding as soon as that thing hits a human. So I'm gonna disagree with you up one side and down the other until the cows come home. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm not now. Again, I'm pretty limited on what I saw, but what I did see, I did not see that as soon as it enters. Well, I did. Excuse me. I back up. The cheaper hollow points didn't get the expansion because they acted like a parachute and they just stopped. And it's like, well, this is a crap bullet. And the doc sarcastically has it in his forceps, turns around going, okay, big guy, what bullet is this? I'm going, it's a crap bullet. That's all I can tell you. This is garbage bullet. Well, who makes it? I said, I don't know. I would like to know to make sure I stay away from that thing. But I said, I have no idea who makes that. It's probably one of those generic hollow points like every bullet company makes, like Federal makes their HST, which is their gold standard and their gold dot, or they make like a lower end, just a plain Jane hollow point, which, those things, it's better than nothing. I don't know. If you put your bullet placement where it needs to go, it probably will do it. Is it going to expand? Not reliably. But one thing I did find I was using for a while was when I first started this company up 5 years ago. It's been that long ago? Yeah, we're on our 6th year now. So real quick, I got out of law enforcement. Before I got out of law enforcement, retired, there's a local company not too far from me that started up a company. This was back about 12 or 13. And they put a deal on the local firearms forum. This is how I got into the loading business, industry wise. And I got a hold of them. They put on, they're going to start this business and they can provide ammo, whatever. So I was still law enforcement. I got a hold of them. I said, hey, can you provide, because I want to support the mom and pop people, the small people. And can you support, I was only working for a small department then, 8 people before I retired. And so I met them and trusted their ammo was good, whatever. And then they invited me down to look at their operation. They were running ammo load machines. And then I started helping out with them. And then I would tell them I was going to retire soon, whatever. And they said, when you retire, because those guys both were HVAC guys, they had other jobs. This was just kind of their side business. We want you to run our business for us. And so I did. So I retired in 2015. I ran their business for about 3-4 years. And then I moved farther east and I said, I'm not going to commute that far. And they said, well, we're thinking about, giving it up anyway. So that's how I got in the industry. So when I got into started High Desert, I already had all the vendor contacts, all the places to go for the powder and the bullets and everything. And I knew all these people because I talked to them and ordered for years. So it was seamless getting into it. So going into that, I already had the knowledge of a lot of that stuff starting this business, and then backing it up with the stuff I've been seeing. Was able to immediately tailor make a lot of the stuff, and then the help with the newer technology coming out, and then some of these other people. It's like, if I know it, I'll do it. If I don't lean onto my own understanding, if it's not something I know, I'm the first to raise my hand going, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And so that's the philosophy I keep going with it. And, I think that's where we're at. Where are we at now? I got off on a tangent there.
No, this is great. I think there's definitely a takeaway also from this discussion where, especially when you're running a revolver, so many of us grew up on Glocks. We were spoiled by Glocks. Glock is plug and play. Yeah. It's, you get it, you throw whatever in, you're fine. But so the C camp above me, there are specific types of ammo that the manufacturer says, yeah, you're only going to be running these. Sorry, buddy, you can't just be running everything. There are right. Parameters that if you're leaving Glock, if you're leaving some mainstream and it's not a bad thing, lowest common denominator solution, and that can be a Walther, and that can be a Smith, and even HK. When you leave that, you go into something that might be there might be some additional factors. Just like you mentioned with the revolver, there might need to be some testing with whatever ammo you choose to carry defensively. And it needs to fit what your mission is.
Yeah, so I remember one of the things you wanted to touch on was bullet selection. And just like equipment, it's mission specific.
Yeah.
When I first started High Desert, it was pretty much just training ammo. I went with the 3 bread and butter calibers, 9mm, 45 auto, and 223. running all full metal jacket stuff, TMJs, and it was just basic training ammo. So then with the 9, we added the two different, we started with 115, so we added 124s. People started asking for 124s, and they wanted subsonic. So I started doing that, and then added hollow points. And so mission specific. I think you've touched on several on your podcast, and I've touched on with people. I would not recommend. I know Colonel Cooper, they all fall to hardball, but I don't recommend TMJ, FMJs for duty carry. Or just defensive carry. I just there's better options out there that do the job better. And I recommend a good, solid, constructed hollow point in any caliber. But there's a lot of stuff out there that I haven't kept up on a lot. I mean, my head's been buried the last 5 years, doing my stuff here and producing ammo and doing research and load development. I remember going to a ballistic seminar early 2000s for Hornady, and the guy had that 223 tap stuff. I felt really bad for him. That stuff failed so bad in Joe Block. Oh my gosh, it was horrid. It's like, well, no one's going to be carrying that stuff. I was like, it's like, man, that's bad. And then one of the few oddball ones was one by Winchester, and they had the old SXT, and they had early 2000s major lead jacket separation with those things. And a good story on that one was I had a friend of mine. He was up there in the Puget Sound area working for a sheriff's office. He was a SWAT guy. So he had a UC car, the old Ford Crown Vics. Gets in his car. It's winter time. It's cold. He gets in the car, starts it up, forgets something in the house. He goes back in the house, comes back out. Someone's jumped in his car now, backing out of his driveway. But he's got all SWAT gear in it, including a full auto MP5. That car ain't going anywhere. So this guy, anyways, the guy starts backing out of there. He puts a round to the windshield. It's a 45 auto. He's got his 1911 on him, running the Winchester SXT. Center punches the guy through the windshield. The guy backs, goes across, doesn't stop, and up to the guys, across the street into someone else's yard. The car ends up over someone's mailbox. It's high centered or whatever. And the fight is on in the neighbor's driveway. The guy is still alive, right? So they finally get them subdued, whatever. So what happened is they, when they do the investigation, they found the jacket of the SXT sitting right on the dashboard. And the lead got him right in the sternum, but didn't penetrate anything. It slowed down so much.
That's just like those Liberty rounds. Although not the jacket. Well, practically the jacket separates, and then you have the single little BB penetrator.
Yeah. But it's funny. I thought now that's kind of. Separation. Okay, I'm with you on that one. But I would think there'd still be enough poop where that lead would have penetrated the sternum. No, it got into the sternum. It got on the back side of it, on the thoracic side of the sternum, but it didn't go any farther than that. And so the fight was on. So now you've got someone who is determined. Now most people might have a psychological stop on that one, going, "Oh my gosh!" Right, take the air out of him. He got center punched. No, the fight was on in this guy's front yard. It's full on brawl, and the guy is center punched, bleeding. Of course, it's not arterial or any type of bleeding. It's just superficial stuff, but he's still bleeding, and the fight's on. He finally gets him subdued, but that's one of those things where, the ammo testing and stuff really needs to be done. I've learned over the years I don't take ammo companies because they're trying to sell a product. They're trying to market a product, and I'm not knocking any one ammo company over another. I'm sure Hornady obviously is up their tap stuff quite a bit. I would hope. I'm sure SXT, if they're still making it, I don't know. I'm not up on it. Are they still making SXTs or just Ranger Ts?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
It's been long since I've been in the Winchester side of things. But they had a bad rap. Ranger Ts were pretty much just a black Talon with a different color. It didn't have a black on them.
And one less claw.
Yeah, one less claw. There you go. And but I don't take it's a mark, the old marketing ploy, market an item in such a way that you think you can't live without it, then go in for the monetary kill. And that's Liberty and some of this other snake oil type bullets and stuff. And I sometimes on the Facebook pages and I just bite my tongue and just scroll on by. It's like, it doesn't matter what I say. People are just like, oh no, this is the bomb. This is the whatever. And
sure it is. You enjoy that.
Nope. I mean, it's like, I don't have it in me. When people ask me, about ammo selection, well, obviously you're going to, recommend your stuff. I said, well, depending on what the mission, I said, not all my stuff is mission related to what you're doing. I don't make a short barrel and stuff like the old Gold Dot. I said, if that's available, get that stuff. I said, that's the gold standard for a short barrel 38 plus P. If you can't get it, I guarantee my stuff's going to work really, really well because it's been tested. Well, I know it's been gel blocked. I'm not pulling anybody out of a body, but like I go back to the 10% gel block. If it's going to produce in that, it's pretty close to what I've seen taken out of people. And it's like, it's producing at this velocity, which is not supposed to happen, but it's happening. And
well, that reminds me of advice from my buddy, Lane Kritzer. And this was, I don't remember how many years ago. He basically said something along the lines of, and this was mostly focused on police departments for an agency level advice, but it absolutely applies to the everyday responsible citizen concerned about their safety and their protection. And it's, have your A number one standard for your carry, but you also need to have a backup.
Oh yeah,
because there's a possibility that one magic round might be sold out, and so you can't completely bet on that always being available or affordable or anything. Have a backup in mind, and if you haven't already, start looking at what your potential backups are to whatever this magic is. And it's not a bad idea to maybe have some on hand.
I don't have it in me to give people bad advice. I mean, if someone's making a product that is better than what I'm doing, I'm going, it's like that short barreled revolver. You might get on there and go and, I'll tell you what a better product is based on what your mission is. It's like, okay, now you need something like this, the better, it's like my 223, a lot of guys are running 77 grain, my open tip mats, my long range stuff, and they've been dumping coyotes with it. That open tip match isn't made for that, but it's opening up. It's making a nice. It's doing its job. It's not designed for that, but it's working. But there's better options out there like VMAX and different ballistic tips type stuff for varmints. And I'll say it works, but here's something you might want to look at. I'll sell it to you, no problem. But I'm just not that way.
Why are you the forum thread stopper?
Okay, so there's this is one of my instructors. So this is my firearms training company, Cerberus Training Group. So there's three of us, the three-headed dog, right? So I'm a thread stopper because I'll go on there and I try to be diplomatic about it, but I'm saying this is what you're going to see, blah, blah, and I kind of hit them hard with it, but I try to be diplomatic as possible. And generally, like in a forum, they'll have this discussion about whatever it is, and I'll come in and go, okay, this is what you're going to see, blah, 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 blah. You can run it at this, whatever. And then because you can tell it's like no one's been there, and you can, and it shows. And there's that saying again, and it's like, okay, I try to be as humble as possible because I know these people don't know me. I'm just a keyboard commander like anybody else behind a name. I understand that. So I back it up with a lot of different facts, and here's the deal. But of course they can't back up, they can't test my facts any. But I've been blessed with having worked in an extremely rural county, sheriff's office in a rural law enforcement, to have the opportunity to meet Doc Roberts in person, meet all these patriarchs of the combat shooting world through our instructor association, and learn from them, and then teach at the academy for 3 years, and then do this investigation of the autopsy. And I also worked at our state crime lab doing some training with them when I was doing crime scene reconstruction and stuff. And then I was also on a team that hunted down, do the marijuana thing with the big plantations. I was on a team for that for three summers. Eastern Washington gets huge plantations of the marijuana. I mean, I understand marijuana is legalized, but not in like 500,000 plants on public land. It's, that's cartel type stuff. And so I've been blessed to be able to have an opportunity to do a lot of different things. I didn't sit around on my thumb waiting for it to come to me. If there's a crack in the door, I was through that door threshold going, hey, I'm here, man. I want to do this kind of stuff. And so I hope I can bring enough to the table in my business here to be able to help people out going, here's kind of what works and here's not what works. And I wish people would listen to like Doc Roberts and some of the people you bring on. These are the industry people that need to be listened to and not poo-pooed. And that's, like I said, on One Gun Forum, I posted that link to the when Doc was here on there. And some people are making fun of it. And I was just going, not what you're saying, people. You have no flipping clue. Why do I bother? I shouldn't bother. It's like I got better things to do. I don't need to be taking high blood pressure pills from you people.
Exactly.
But it's been a good run. Go ahead.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, obviously the title of the episode says High Desert Cartridge Company. That's who you are. Where can people find you?
HighDesertCartridge.com. Also on Instagram. I'm not sure how that was set up. High desert.cartridge or underscore whatever.
It's some
type stuff. It's something like that. I'm not a big computer person. I was not raised in that era. But I mumble through it. Luckily, I've got a great person in Ashley and another guy, friend Luke, who did my website. And it's like, Steve, would you like this? It's like, make ammo, get paycheck. Okay, how about with this? Make ammo, get paycheck. This is why I have you people, and so I'm not.
What do you mean, you people?
Yeah, I don't have that kind of pride in me that's like, if it's out of my wheelhouse, out of my lane, I'm going to be the first to raise my hand and go, nope, that's not, this is a better person to talk to. So it's like, the revolver stuff, you need to be like American Fighting Revolver. It's $5 a month, a lot of history, a lot of technical stuff, maintenance stuff on your revolvers. It's like, I kind of joke with DB and Y on it. It's like, $5 is a cheap date, but it's a very good quality cheap date. You guys might want to pay attention to this. That's why I give Daryl the EF Hutton Award. It's like he's the only guy I know of who I can develop a load for, and he does it by feel, and he's dead nuts on where it needs to be for the defensive load that matches it. It's like this guy's got one uncanny arthritic hands like I'd never seen before.
When he speaks,
yeah,
listen.
And that's what I've been blessed with, like people like you and Chuck and Daryl and all these other people who have been there, done all these different types of, they got a life story and they've got a story to tell. And they've got just like, a piece of the pie or the piece of the elephant. I've only seen a piece of the elephant, and these guys have seen other pieces of the elephant. And together within, 8, 10 people, whatever, we put the elephant together. And now we can look at it going, this is what I'm seeing now. Excuse me. But it's been, yeah. I think we hit everything you wanted me to.
I agree. And I think what I will do now is my wrap-up stuff. So, as per the norm, excellent discussion. Again, there was the possibility we could have had a couple people come in. It wound up being a one-on-one. No, still worked just perfectly fine.
Yeah, you talked about
really good topics.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned was like bullet selection, and the first thing I popped up was like Chuck Haggard. I said, there's somebody that just has an encyclopedia of ballistics in his head. Yeah. And if anybody can you say a caliber and whatever your mission state, he'll come, okay, you want this bullet.
And because he's actively, constantly testing these, and he goes, does these classes, and he's, okay, what are you carrying? Okay, give me a couple rounds.
That's the kind of people I prefer to run with, are those who are always looking, searching, bettering themselves, not have been there, done that, and resting on those laurels. You're continually moving forward, looking, whatever. And those people inspire me. And like I said, when Daryl approached me about the 32 Magnum project, it's like, that was a whole new world. I've never even explored 32 whatsoever.
And not only that, though, but it's turned into a very productive, and it's been useful, and you benefited from it because now you have a better idea of what 32 is about.
I did. Yeah, it brought up the whole thing, doing the gel testing and the blast and the recoil. It's like, where have I gone wrong on this thing? Where have I missed this at? Oh, yeah, by far.
And a lot of people have. And fortunately, because of those types of guys, they've been a good example. And if you're not already listening to them, if you're not already subscribed, I'm subscribed. I don't necessarily I'm not always accessing everything they have, but now because I'm a subscriber, I have full access to their entire catalog. And also by being a supporter, this is helping ensure that it continues, because this is a resource that, if there's no support, it might not be there. So
that's one thing, is that it's like a fire hose of information. I mean, I'm busy here loading and doing stuff, and I got a family life and whatever. I can't be, on the computer all the time. And so a lot of things get by me. Hey, have you seen the latest on whatever? I said, no, sorry, man, missed that. I was, so I try to keep up on what I do. It's kind of like when I'm training and stuff, or I need a piece of equipment. I have something I need to solve, a problem I need to solve, like a mount for a light or whatever. And I've got a lot of people in the industry like yourself or Blowers or somebody going, hey, this is a problem I'm having. What do you expect? And they'll say, oh, go look at this. I solved my problem. Great. And I'm off running again. I don't pay attention to the industry too much. I mean, I do it for the ammo side of things. Obviously, I got to keep up on some of those things, but
networking is a thing.
It is, I went down to SHOT. Not my biggest thing was SHOT. It's like going buying, looking for a car when you got no money, all this stuff and it's like good for retailers, but I don't have that kind of money to be looking at all that kind of stuff. It's like, but it was cool to be invited to the Smith & Wesson kickoff dinner. That was really cool to be invited to that, meeting Jerry Michalik and the CEO of Smith & Wesson and Jason Klosner from Lipsy's, and actually, behind the scenes doing stuff for that UC gun, not knowing that, Jason's keeping an eye on this type of stuff, was pretty cool. And then to me, I was only there for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, but I was with meetings and meeting with my vendors and stuff like that. And so, I try to keep prices down. I'm not the biggest, obviously I don't have the biggest buying volume that, these bigger companies have. And so that drives prices. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, there's 11% tax federally on ammo that goes toward conservation, a lot of overhead. I do have accounts through Hodgdon Powder, so I get my powder right from them, but I have to buy 1,000 pounds at a time, and that requires an explosives truck to deliver the stuff. And that's not cheap. And so there is quite a bit of overhead to the biz, and these machines here are not cheap. I got 6 of them plus a processor, and I try to keep prices down, but people need to understand the buying power. I don't have the volume that everybody else has, and so they can buy cheaper because they can buy larger volumes of stuff. But like I said, I'm small enough. I want to stay that way so I can help people develop loads like Daryl and working with Chuck, and then helping people out. Another quick story is during COVID, I get this call from Southside Chicago SWAT. I said, hey, I heard you guys got ammo out there. I'm going, I thought it was a joke. I really did. It's like, okay, leave me a number and I'll get back to you. I really did. I thought someone was playing a joke on me. So I wait about a half an hour, get on the net and search it, and dang, if it wasn't the phone number for Chicago's police department coming through there, it's like, oh my gosh. So I call them back. I said, okay, I got more time to talk to you now, and they couldn't find ammo. And I shipped them a pallet of ammo. And I said, how'd you hear about me? Oh, Bill Blowers. I said, oh, okay. All right. Now all makes sense. Okay, I'm with you. So I shipped them a pallet of 9 and a pallet of 223. So I couldn't get it. I mean, I'm here, guys. If you need me for something, I don't care if you use me, abuse me, whatever. You don't ever talk to me again. It's like whatever. But if I can help you out. Okay.
Well, I just reached out to a buddy, Dave Bowler. I don't know if you know Dave, works for Smith, and just asked, "Are you familiar with High Desert Cartridge?"
Mm-mm.
Just continuing. As a matter of fact, Dave was the one who, man, this was early 2000s, basically showed me the importance of networking, and I attribute that to him.
I got introduced to several people at that Smith & Wesson dinner. If he was there, I may have.
He's like I think he's he's law enforcement rep over Western states or something like that.
Oh.
He might even be higher by now.
Don't think it was there.
Great
I think
guy.
It was just mainly from the actual, offices of Smith & Wesson were there. But they didn't know where the ammo was coming for their ambassadors.
Yeah.
Travis and Chad, when they're testing, when they're making videos of their new stuff coming out and they're using my ammo, and that was great. I was able to face to face and handshake and talk with them a bit about what I do. So it's getting out there. It's helping.
Yeah. Do you do a 32 ACP?
No, I had not yet. I've got a couple of different things. People ask me about 10 millimeter.
Yeah.
I did 10 millimeter about
Steve
4 years.
Fisher.
No, it wasn't. No, it was actually just public. 10 millimeter, it's like, I did a batch of 5,000 like 4 years ago, and it sat on the shelf and gathered dust. It took me 3 years to get rid of it, so it's probably not high on my list of doing things. That's the other thing is about supply and demand. I'm sure that's why Federal sat on the sidelines for a year, thinking, where's this 32 Magnum going to go before they jump in the pool with it? And so it's the same thing I've got to do. It's like you got to understand that if I don't have the tooling for one of these machines, I got to up front and then retool it and then buy all the components for it, and then I got to make sure I sell it to I got to pay. It's got to pay for itself. And so I got to 5,000-10,000. When I make a batch of ammo for anything like 41 Magnum, it'll be a batch of 10,000 rounds.
And the reason I asked about 32 specifically is we had a discussion a year or two ago about 32 defensively, 32 ACP, and how it was cracking specific Berettas. Because the specs in Europe were higher or lower. I don't recall which, but I was just thinking, yeah.
I've been approached. That's be the next one is 32 auto, possibly. It's got the specs are not bad on it.
And it's fun.
It's respectable.
The Beretta Tomcat is so much fun, as is the 1903, and I have one, but it's not camera though.
I'm wanting to find a 1903 and 32. I think that'd be a hoot to carry one of those. In fact, I got nostalgic in the last year. Before I retired, I carried a Colt, original Colt 1934 and 38 Super. My last year on duty, And of course, the chief's going, "Why are you carrying that for?" I said, "Because I'm the firearms program manager, and you told me I can carry what I want, so that's what I'm carrying till I finally retire out of here." But 32's got respectable. It's got respectable stuff, and I'm thinking, it'd be a hoot to carry a 32 auto. I don't think it's you wouldn't be hindering yourself that much ballistically on the auto if it's loaded right.
And the Walther has the new PPK in 32. They were in 38 or 380s. They now come in 32, and they revamped the Beretta Tomcats, where there are a bunch of different variants. Where I kind of want to get one because I really like my Tomcat. It's fun.
Is there much ammo out there available for them?
Yeah, online.
Oh, probably not. The way you said that, it's like, okay, that just tells me everything right there. Well, yeah.
Well, if you look, you can find it, but it's not. It might not necessarily be what you're looking for, and it falls perfectly in line what we've been talking about. Where, I don't know what the velocity is going to be, or I don't know what the pressures are going to be, and I don't want to crack my gun. And if all I can find is some Serbian whatever 32, am I going to be confident in that? And also, when it comes to like 32, I remember talking to, I think it was also Haggard, 32 380. I probably, in most guns, I'm probably going to be better off sticking with the full metal jacket because there's insufficient velocity to have that expansion.
380 especially, I found that a couple of shootings that I attended. 380 hollow points, you might as well done. I don't know, which it's kind of odd. You'd think with all the engineering and technology out there, someone could engineer a bullet that would, but I don't think they've spent much time on it. If you look at what they're doing on the bullet construction, it's just a plain Jane hollow point. It's almost just like, all right, we'll put one out here, get the drill out. Let's drill out an FMJ and give it to them. Yeah, someone will buy it because it's a hollow point, right? It's a hollow. It's got to be able to, it's got to be good. It's a hollow point. But yeah, I tell people, I go and I don't make 380. The bullet that small is the height and width is almost the same dimension, and my bullet feeders can't turn them the right way. They come all over which way direction they want to go because it's the same direction diameter wise as it is height wise, and they can't discriminate them. And so I don't load 380. So I've got a company out back east I get them from, Tennessee Cartridge, and I get them from them. And it's like, good, you make the stuff, you can have the heartache. I don't want to deal with it. But it's all 100 grain full metal jacket. And they say, I'd have hollow points? I'm going, let me explain. I'm not trying to sell you this ammo, but I'm telling you that it doesn't work. Hollow points they don't in that deal.
Well, I carry a Glock. Yeah.
Same in 25.
Yeah.
They don't bother. Nope.
I just have a 25. I carry a Glock 42 as a backup.
Which is, I'm not a Glock guy. So what is that?
380.
380.
So
okay.
Yep, just have full metal jackets in it.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I'm not. That's the backup. That's the this is bad. I better. Yeah. That's
the only time that I'll recommend for carry use for a full metal jacket. This little smaller calibers.
Yeah.
380. But 32, of course, 32's got the velocity, got the poop behind it, and the technology and the bullet design. So they'll do the job.
What was it? I will be getting, because I have to, the Bodyguard 2 in 380. I have to.
Oh,
absolutely have to. Because that's absolutely also 380, and depending, I think it's 12 rounds. That's double what I got my little Glock, and it's almost the same form factor. And I wear it under my vest, and we'll see how that works. And 380 is fun to shoot. I enjoy 380.
It is.
I like shooting everything, though. Look at my wall.
I see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to now basically wrap up. I'm going to tell everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Steve, thanks for the discussion. Always nice to have you on. The next time we have Gary on Roberts, I'll have to pull you in.
Man, I would love to be on with him. That was just, if I could have filmed that at our instructor conference when he was there.
Yes.
It was just, no one was moving.
Yeah.
No one was going to the restroom. No one was, it was, that good. And it was hammering right away with what, in the very limited of what I had seen so far. I think, like I said, only did 4 or 5 or 6 of them, and spot on with everything he was talking about, what I was seeing. Yeah. It's like, this guy is E.F. Hutton extraordinary.
And there's a reason why, and he studied directly under and with Fackler.
Yep.
And awesome guy. Yeah, I need to text him or call him.
Yep.
But big thank you to you, the viewer, the listener, and Steve at High Desert Cartridge. Big thank you to the sponsors of the show, Lucky Gunner, Philster, Walther, and also our network supporters, whether you're on Patreon or on the forum. Thank you for your support. With that in mind, if you like what we do, likes are absolutely appreciated. Shares are very much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed, now's a good time. As a matter of fact, we've been going on for 2.5 hours now. And this has been a very quick 2 hours. I anticipated this was just going to be a nice discussion, and absolutely it was. If you haven't already, hit that like. But if you do like what we're doing here, this is episode 419. That's on average 2 hours. That's a lot of hours of listening. It's free for your use. There's some more behind the scenes stuff. If you want access, go to either primaryandsecondary.com/forum and hit that network support banner. And from there, you can help support this whole network, or go to patreon.com/primaryandsecondary. And essentially, there are benefits, one of which is Discord access. Discord's awesome. Great community there, talking about all kinds of stuff, and it's nonstop. And it's just basically a big chat, and it covers pretty much any topic you ever want to talk about. I don't know. I think we might even have a food channel on there, but it's great to be able to have these discussions. It's great to present this kind of information to the masses, because I know I'm still getting comments from videos from hours ago, from years ago, that still have pertinent information. And it's interesting. I read a comment recently talking about Jordan from the Gun Nerds episodes where he was describing something, and he pretty much forecast this is probably the direction what we're looking at. And sure enough, he was right. But it's cool to bring in this caliber of guest and panelist and friend to talk about these important topics, because there's not enough of that. And there sure is a lot of speculation. There's a lot of flash and content that's specifically made as entertainment. These discussions absolutely can be entertaining, and they are. I think they are. Screw you if you don't think they are.
Yeah.
But it's great having this, and it's for me as the host, I get to learn something with every episode, and I love it. So next Saturday, I have an episode with Matt Larson and an assorted, awesome panel talking about mitigation of moral injury. Awesome. I'm very excited about that topic. And then the following Wednesday, I'll be talking with Hickok 45 and friends, talking about enjoying firearms. And for me, that's been a journey. And to finally realize, man, these are just fun, and I need to accept that. And not everything has to be within this duty serious realm. Has been a good growing up for me. So that is all. I think I will end the feed now, and then I can edit this, and I can give a copy to the Patreon and the network supporters, so they can watch it without commercials and ads. Yeah. So I think that is it. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. That was a lot of fun. So I guess I will now hit end stream. I'm still new to the StreamYard thing, so here's the closing.
Alrighty.